3. When Batman says that he's vengeance, what does he mean? He can't mean personal revenge. He doesn't believe in an eye for an eye, it goes against his no-killing rule. He understands if he killed the Joker, he'd be cutting off his nose to spite his face, and losing his eyes and nose would make crime fighting much harder. I am vengeance, I am the Knight, I am Batman. 3 sentences that have come to define the core of Batman's character. The first time we heard the phrase was in the animated series, Season 1, Episode 10, Nothing to Fear. In it, Scarecrow gasses the Bat with his fear toxin and he hallucinates a monstrous version of his father, calling him a disappointment, a disgrace. Batman shouts back that he's not a disgrace, he's vengeance, he's the Knight, he's Batman, as a sort of mantra to try to regain control of his sanity. These are the 3 tenets of the cowl. The simplicity of those statements is goddamn beautiful, but the order of them is important too. Vengeance is first, then the Knight, then finally Batman. It's his evolution, laid out plainly for us to see. He started as vengeance, he became the Knight, but in modern stories he's something greater. He's a symbol, a legend. He's Batman. So when we ask what he means by vengeance, it can't be a personal vendetta. Why he puts on the cowl might not be the coolest part of any Bat tale, but any writer worth their salt should know the answer before putting him to the page. It's not revenge for the murder of his parents. If it was, he'd be hyper-focused on tracking down their killer Joe Chill and putting a bullet in his brain. And that's not his focus. He's not fueled by vengeance, he embodies it, and that distinction is important. I think that what he means is he takes vengeance on behalf of everyone who is ever wronged like he was wronged. He does it so we don't have to. The best Batman stories are the ones that understand his mission isn't born from anger or hate, it's born from empathy for life's victims. The Batman of Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and eventually Arkham Knight embodies that kind of vengeance. But it took him a while to get to that place, and in 2013, we got Arkham Origins, a prequel with a young, raw, unrefined Batman. Gotham City was given a bat-shaped monster that would brutally sweep through the city, scaring criminals of all shapes and sizes. Your looter was treated the same way as your serial killer. This Batman didn't embody vengeance, but he was fueled by it.
What was absolutely important to us is that it feel true to Arkham, and that it is our game, that it has new content, it has new gadgets, new enemies, newness that makes it feel like a new experience, that you are getting plenty of systems and stuff and content to sink your teeth into, but all of this being framed very carefully with this sort of fanatical attention to, is it Arkham?
Origins wasn't developed by Rocksteady, it was developed by WB Montreal. The year was 2011, Arkham City was out in the world, people were loving it, and Rocksteady were in the early planning stages for their next game. But it was clear that whatever that game was going to be, it was a few years away. Warner Brothers didn't like that. They wanted more Batman. Batman now, Batman with multiplayer. Where's the Batman? More Batman means more money, more, it's never enough, more. So, while Rocksteady created Arkham Knight, Warner Brothers Montreal was brought in to create Arkham Origins, and Splash Damage was brought in to create the multiplayer component. Eric Holmes, fresh from his time as a lead designer on Gears of War 3, took up the helm of creative director. His mandate was simple. Keep to the Arkham formula, make a sequel to one of the best superhero games ever made, and don't cock it up. Oh, and did I mention that they only had 18 months? That doesn't sound like a long time, and it isn't, but when Arkham Origins flaws are brought up, I think some of its fans use it as a shield against criticism. Victim. The game was only made in 18 months. Warner Brothers gave the devs a tight timeline. It's a miracle it's as good as it is. You're damn right. It is a miracle. Every video game is a miracle. Have you seen that Psychonauts documentary? But before we critique Arkham Origins, it's worth us acknowledging that Arkham Asylum was only made in 21 months. Rocksteady were given a tight turnover because the Dark Knight tie-in game was looking so bad that the license was taken away from Pandemic Studios and tossed their way. If they can build the code, the asylum, the gadgets, and free flow in that small window, I wonder what WB Montreal could do in a similar time frame. After all, Rocksteady packaged up their code and assets and sent it over. All Montreal had to do was unwrap their present and figure out what to do with it. Right? I'm being flippant, and that makes it sound like I don't think Origins is very good. That's not true. I think it has the most interesting character writing in the franchise, some new set pieces that are some of Arkham's best, and some really, really cool ideas. There's not a lot of new in here, and because I've done critiques on Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, links below, this is a very difficult video to make. In a vacuum, it's a belter of a video game. Look how fun it is to punch bad guys as bats, look how fun Predator mode is, but I've praised those systems before. They're not unique to Arkham Origins. It's a game that makes incremental little changes to the Arkham formula, and with a couple of exceptions, those changes are often confusing and frustrating.
What is about this game that makes it different from other video games that are out now?
Well, I think something that's really unique to the game is really the Batman experience, right?
Despite the fact we didn't have to wait long to see him again, Arkham Origins brought Batman back to our screens with a vengeance. He's less calculating here, more instinctive, missing the little details that matter most. So it's apt that, despite my fondness for this game, that's a pretty accurate description of it. So, let's break it down. This is a commentary and critique of Batman Arkham Origins.
You've been back for almost 2 years now. You can't expect me to believe that Gotham's most eligible bachelor is spending another Christmas alone.
You just ran out of time.
Knowing that tonight we put to rest one of Gotham's most heinous and relentless killers, Julian Gregory Day.
Asylum and City opened with slow, brooding tension. Origins is a whirlwind. Rage rushes through its first few minutes with a tight, quick cutscene leading into an assault on Blackgate Prison. It's Christmas Eve. Batman is silent, just a force of nature getting ready for the long night ahead. We see Vicky Vale ask Bruce Wayne for some innocent gossip about his love life, and he casts her aside, focused on the mission. Jim Gordon's on the telly, not yet Gotham's commissioner, just insisting that there's no such thing as a Batman. Alfred sadly places an ignored Christmas dinner on the desk, reflecting a picture of Thomas and Martha Wayne, a solemn reminder that he doesn't think they'd approve of Bruce's nightly escapades. I think there's a case to be made that Arkham Origins has 3 core characters: Batman, Joker, and Alfred. They all go on individual character arcs, so it's important that Origins sets up their place in the narrative as soon as possible. Joker is saved for later, so the emphasis now is on the Bat and the Butler. Batman's been on the job for 2 years now, but he's just been concentrating on mob bosses and low-level thugs. The most insane baddie he's come up against is bloody Calendar Man, who we learn was arrested by Batman and is now up for the death penalty. That's a beautifully brutal cause and effect to link our hero to. None of the colourful characters that make his rogue gallery so famous have made their voices known yet. To be frank, he's kind of had it easy. Through the dynamic camera angles, we get to see all of the tech and gadgetry that makes him an effective hero. The Batcomputer, the Batwing, a slick suit-up sequence, they're all here. In line with how young Bruce is, his Batsuit looks less manufactured and more assembled, with individualized padding making Bats look stockier and thick with 2 C's. The Batmobile isn't ready for the road yet, a necessary narrative excuse because Rocksteady didn't want the Arkhamverse to have a drivable Batmobile until Arkham Knight. It's a weird excuse because Bats already has the Batwing, something you'd think would have come after the car, but whatever, let's not overthink it, it's not that important. Batman's relationship with Alfred is frayed. He's drowning in his dedication to crushing crime, so the two of them don't have a partnership. Alfred's just along for the ride, unable to see the point of Batman. Bruce sees the mantle as necessary. Alfred just sees it as a coping mechanism. Neither of them see that both of these things can be true. Just as Vicky says at the start, no man is an island, and Bruce is so blinded by vengeance that he's unable to see that.
Don't hurt me!
The tension between Alfred and Batman is shown to us by how Bats ignores his friend, but that doesn't mean we're getting the quiet, stoic figure of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Kevin Conroy isn't wearing the cowl this time. Instead, it's Roger Craig Smith. You might know him from Ezio Auditore, Chris Redfield, or his groundbreaking performance as Snorpy Fizzlebean in Bugsnax. Smith is given more dialogue to play with than Conroy did, and he seizes that opportunity to inject this younger Batman with more vibrancy and anger than ever before. We'll see over the game's 15 hours that this Bat will argue, yell, and get frustrated pretty consistently. Smith talked about how much he enjoyed playing this darker, crueler Batman in an interview with Superhero Hype. Quote, "One of the nice things I liked is playing upon the obsessive nature of Batman at this time in his life. It's so kind of chilling, and it's kind of like he's gleeful that he's on the hunt for these guys. That's more fun because it's a little more unhinged. He gets a kick out of this stuff. It was an element that I really enjoyed getting to explore. That hunt kicks off with his interrogation of Blackgate Prison's warden, Martin Joseph. The gang leader, Black Mask, has orchestrated a prison riot, holding Commissioner Loeb hostage, and the first gameplay we get is of him choking a criminal and clumping the warden to the floor. We'll later learn that Warden Joseph is corrupt. In fact, he ordered Harleen Quinzel to wipe away Calendar Man's insanity status just so he would get the death penalty, so a light twist of his arm doesn't seem all that bad. But we don't know that here, so as far as first impressions go, it gives us a Batman who's as thuggish as the criminals he fights. The siege on Blackgate is as effective an opening as we could get. We're thrown fist first into battling thugs and tracking a mysterious path of destruction through the prison. A mysterious drone is zipping around, filming the whole thing, and Bats retrieves its memory card. There's something to be said for how much gameplay variety WB Montreal have crammed into the prison, trying to remind us of the basics before it unleashes us into the world. Regular thugs, body armor thugs, interrogation, grappling, explosive gel, batarangs, they're all used before the first 10 minutes are up. But there's a special concentration on fighting. Including the eventual boss fight, there are 7 combat encounters in the opening. Arkham Asylum gave us 1, and Arkham City gave us 2. So why am I flagging this? Why am I being so pedantic with counting stuff down so early on? Well, there are 2 reasons. The first is because this combat gameplay loop is something that will return much more often in Arkham Origins, for better and for worse. And the second is because it's so effective here. We feel like a force of nature whirling through the prison, massacring the inmates. There's not a single moment of stealth in Blackgate. We see that no matter who you are, this Batman's first option is violence.
We're starting with a clean slate, and you're not on it.
What are you talking about? I'm not on it? After all I've done for you.
He's also much less effective. Origins gives us a Batman so early in his career that he's unable to win the day. His first objective, save Commissioner Loeb, is a failure. His second objective, stop Black Mask, is about to suffer the same fate. Arkham City rolls credits with a series of deaths that Batman fails to prevent, so its finale feels monumental. That game broke the back of the Bat, and he will carry the events of that night into Rocksteady's next game. But Arkham Origins leads with failure. Anger, rage, vengeance, they're simply not enough. There's a general sense that this murder is a point of no return for Gotham, an evolution from Batman's Old Testament and into the new one. Gillian Loeb wasn't particularly loved, he was as rotten as they come and on Black Mask's payroll, but he was a Gotham figurehead in both the comics and the Arkhamverse. If we turn our gaze to the comics, Frank Miller's Year One gives us a Loeb who feasts with the rich and murderous, mob bosses like Carmine Falcone and Salvatore Maroni. He's actually supportive of Batman, believing him to be a nice distraction for Gotham's media. That is, until Bats invades his home during a party. Ladies, gentlemen, you have eaten well. You have eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit. Your feast is nearly over. From this moment on, none of you are safe. Miller's Loeb seems to have been ripped straight off the page and crammed into Arkham Origins, but his death is new. He doesn't die in Year One, but he's later killed by the Hangman, a villain who, somehow, keeps creeping into my Batman videos. Through how everyone reacts to Loeb's death, it feels like this is the most blasé crime that Gotham has seen since, well, the death of the Waynes. It's public. Batman is concerned by just how public this is. Black Mask usually operates from the shadows, but for the first time ever, a criminal is making a statement to Gotham and its underworld. Just what exactly that statement is remains to be seen. Loeb's death isn't the only unexpected shift though. Black Mask isn't alone. He's got a monster with him, a creature that's unlike anything Batman's faced before. Waylon Jones, aka Killer Croc.
Wait till Black Mask's assassins get through with you.
What assassin?
Whoever wins is gonna be famous and rich.
On the rooftop of Blackgate, with police choppers incoming, we face down our first in a wide array of boss fights. Croc's purpose is clearly tutorializing the stun mechanic because Origins will heavily rely on it for the next few hours of gameplay, again and again. WB Montreal's Croc design is different from Rocksteady's, like they've tried to humanize him. In Asylum, he was a towering beast that we were encouraged to fear. In Origins, he's younger and smaller. The voice isn't as gravelly and crunchy, instead it's wispy, and he doesn't loom over Bats, he just looks down on him. I'm not quite sure what the point of this change is. Either he's a terrifying monster that shows this Batman that a new breed of criminal has entered Gotham, which it looks like Origins wants to do with how much he roars about eating us, or he's a humanized victim of a mental and physical condition that ties a neat bow around how ruthless this Batman is by the end of our first mission. Trying to do both ends up diluting his overall presence in Origins, and when the credits roll, Croc is forgettable. Defeating him, Batman pins him to a metal railing over a long drop, beating him senseless to try and find out where Black Mask is going. Again, there's no plan to track the helicopter or use his skills as the world's greatest detective. Bruce is angry, so he goes for the hardcore option. We see the railing squeak and groan under their combined weight, and for a second, it looks like Batman's intending to let Croc fall into the rocks below. But he's able to steel himself. This is where Origins draws its line in the sand. We are getting a callous, cruel Batman, but he's not a killer. Even here, where Croc's humanity could be put into question, he won't give in to the darkness. Good thing too, because it would be just the excuse Captain Jim Gordon is looking for to arrest him. He's in rugged, ruffled shock as he and his men level their guns on us. It turns out that there is such a thing as a Batman. After 2 years, he's now seen the proof for himself. Origins has a more detailed story than Asylum or City, but it's important for me to flag that the delivery of that story is relegated almost exclusively to cutscenes. All these years later, Rocksteady's first 2 games are criticised for the slow, forced walking sections that they opened with, but whether you hated them or not, Origins definitely takes control away from the player in a more traditional way. Cutscene, gameplay, cutscene, and the amount of cutscenes will increase the further into the story we go. I'd be more annoyed about that than I am if the cutscenes were bad, but it's the complete opposite. WB Montreal didn't make them themselves, they called on Game On Studio, an organisation who have been a silent partner on games like Control, Cana, Bridge of Spirits, Gotham Knights, and Marvel's Avengers. Oh dear. There's a dynamism to how they're shot, and some of the character designs leap off the screen in some of these frames. As Batman brings the drone footage back to the Batcave, we see it best. Rather than gradually introduce some of the villains to us in the opening, an Arkham staple by this point, the story comes to a halt while the sexiest compilation of baddies flip around with zooms and slow motion. The plot is laid out for us clearly. Black Mask has put a bounty on our head and is sending 8 assassins after us. Croc's already behind bars, so that leaves Deathstroke, Deadshot, Copperhead, Shiva, Firefly, Electrocutioner, and Bane. Our task for now seems simple. Bring Black Mask to justice, and take out any assassins that try to stop us. Bats responds to Bane's inclusion on this list with interest. It looks like a lot of these criminals were vaguely on his radar before, but none of the really interesting ones are from Gotham. They operate internationally, Bane included. But as we rattle off the criminal list, there's an unmistakable hint of disgust and impatience in Batman's voice. There's not even a hint of the sort of empathy we know he'll harbour later in his career.
A question, sir, if I may. How did Waylon Jones come to be the way he is?
Atavism from the look of it. An unfortunate genetic mutation.
Do you think the condition causes physical pain? Might that explain his rage?
It goes deeper than that. Imagine growing up looking like he did. Children are cruel, Alfred.
What makes this take so fascinating is Origins makes it clear to us that Batman does understand the mental makeup behind a lot of his enemies. He and Alfred talk about Killer Croc, and using the information from the drone, Bats points out that he's very aware of Croc's atavism and the torture he experienced as a child. But none of that matters. He still seems to hold a grudge. This is, by all measures, a pretty blunt and single-minded version of Batman. So, as we round off the opening, let's look at that a wee bit. Criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. It's another classic Batman phrase that's popped up a few times over the years. He said it in the old detective comics, Hush, and he even thinks it in A Serious House on Serious Earth, the Grant Morrison comic that I covered way back in my Arkham Asylum critique. It's Batman's explanation for why he dresses as a bat, why he needs to evolve into a symbol, but that phrase paints the world's greatest detective in a pretty reductive light. When we talk about how Batman is prepared for every eventuality, I don't think we should limit that to just understanding someone's greatest weakness. Having preventative measures for the Justice League is fun, but the really interesting moments are when he uses his detective skills to be empathetic, to figure out why someone is the way they are. It's what originally made the Joker such a captivating villain, because he and we couldn't figure that out. He acted beyond explanation. Of course, that got old as the years went on, so the Joker transformed into a villain that does have a motivation: Batman himself. When he talks about Croc, we see the beginnings of that version of Batman. He understands why the Crocodile Man is the way he is, but he's not yet at a place where he wants to cure him, and in making him so early in his journey here, it almost improves his portrayal in Arkham Asylum. This version of Batman would eventually look to the asylum as an effective means of treating his villains. In his brilliant book, Batman and Psychology, A Dark and Stormy Night, Professor Travis Langley says, quote, "There are cognitive stages that activate to overcome trauma. Cognitively, Bruce Wayne reasons that, given his resources and Gotham City's corruption, fighting crime anonymously is a logical thing for him to do. Morally, he has determined this is the right thing for him to do. Motivationally, he also may need the mask to overcome any lingering reservations or fears that might hold him back, although he might not anticipate how the anonymity will affect him emotionally." There you go, we talked religion in the Asylum video, Shakespeare in the City one, and now I'm referencing a professor of psychology who says pretentiousness can't be fun. In Origins, we see a Batman whose mask detaches him from his humanity. He is the Bat, capital T, capital B, and it won't be until the game's brilliant DLC that he learns he needs to reconnect with that humanity. This Bruce's rage makes him arrogant and short-sighted, and in that arrogance, we find his arc for this game. It's not that he needs to stop being so angry, it's that as Batman, he needs to channel that anger in a smarter way. His arrogance, his cockiness, gets in his way a fair few times before the credits roll. He thinks criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot, but Origins will give us baddies that don't fit into that box. That single-mindedness bleeds into how Bruce Wayne the Man is portrayed in Origins as well. Typically, we see a Bruce Wayne who puts on a front as a drunk but well-meaning idiot while throwing his money at various charities and foundations, but that's not the Bruce we get at the start of his career. His snap at Vicky Vale is just one example, directly contrasting with how he happily jokes with her at the start of Arkham City. We pick up broadcasts from Gotham City Radio that report how Bruce Wayne, playboy, billionaire with inherited wealth, donated a bunch of shoes to a homeless charity while stating, "Everyone deserves the chance to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps," a classic, meaningless line that has been bastardized by your usual suspects. It literally means to overcome an impossible task. It is physically impossible to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, Bruce. But anyway, with Batman grumpily preparing for the long night ahead and the game's opening coming to a close, it's hard not to look at Origins' portrayal of the Dark Knight and see how confident it is. It's good stuff, but whether or not that will continue into gameplay remains to be seen.
So we kept the core of it, we kept what was there already, and we really went in and did some tweaks here and there and added a few extra key things.
It doesn't matter which interview you watch or read, whether it's with the creative director, Eric Holmes, the senior producer, Guillaume Vogel, or the studio head, Martin Carrier. They all focus heavily on how Arkham Origins iterates on Rocksteady's design while staying true to the core features that made us feel like Batman. And one of the areas where that iteration has worked is detective vision. Batman plans to track down Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, reasoning that he must know something about the drone we got our hands on because he's Gotham's biggest arms dealer. However, that plan is interrupted when we note that one of Gotham's radio towers are down. We better investigate. And investigate is the best word to describe this new, evolved detective vision. We are finally actually investigating crime scenes, rather than picking up a single blood trail or waiting for Oracle to run a scan through the Bat computer. In a flurry of little changes, I think this is the best. Bats needs to get into the control room of this tower, but the door is locked and we need to find a keycard to enter. A maintenance worker has been blasted into the wall behind, so we need to scan him and follow his trajectory to find the keycard that flew off of him and landed in a nearby vent. It's the playback mechanics that make this so much more engaging than previous versions. Precision is needed following the events of a crime scene to witness what happened, rather than Batman figuring out the solution for us. There are even notes that flash up on screen, analysing peripheral details like the impact energy to make this process feel high-tech. This is a relatively simple sequence to tutorialise how it all works, but if we fast forward to the Lacey Towers crime scene, the most pivotal one in the story, we get to see how the system complements something more complicated. complicated. We're given complex stages of a crime that make it feel multi-layered, with numerous murders and numerous potential assailants to rifle through. There are 9 in total in various lengths, so it doesn't outstay its welcome, simulating that detective experience that was present in Rocksteady's titles, but pretty one note. Michael McIntyre, the gameplay director, not the dull comedian, disagrees with me there. In an interview with Gaming Bolt, he's a little too praising of Rocksteady's detective mode. Quote, "Being a detective is a big part of being Batman. We wanted to expand the already great gameplay in this area to allow players to dig a little deeper. We wanted to create gameplay that would allow the player to feel like detectives themselves and try to figure things out." With every single interview that I read as preparation for this video, I noticed a recurring theme. WB Montreal, bless them, seemed kinda terrified of criticizing any aspect of Rocksteady's design. I understand why. After all, they were handed the tools, assets, and code of some of the best-selling and most critically acclaimed games of the 2010s. They were being trusted with Rocksteady's kit and didn't want to seem ungrateful. But amid marketing spiel like, "We're aware that we're standing on the shoulders of giants," and "Rocksteady's game design is perfect," WB Montreal were squirreling away, tweaking quite a lot, for better and for worse. Detective Mode 2.0 isn't perfect. For example, that scenario of "thing flies into vent" returns more often than I'd like, and to add real depth and flag Batman's preparedness as a gameplay asset, it would be neat if we had to draw on external knowledge. For example, a list of potential suspects that had similar MOs could flash up, and using the information at the crime scene, we would figure out which in that list was the killer. I don't think it's fair to come down on Origins for that, because honestly, I feel like that would just be greedy. This is a substantial shift in focus and game feel, and that's all detective mode needed in the third game of a franchise. The case files act as optional slices that bats can find in the open world, and each one has a solid little conspiracy attached to them. A counterfeiting operation fraught with betrayal and murder, a rogue hitman who killed one of Penguin's men for a promotion. For all of its open world flaws, which we'll get to, Origins does give us a Batman that solves low-level crimes and tries to find justice for the regular people of Gotham, which is a fresh take, and it reinforces the type of predictable crimes Batman is used to before he's hunted by monsters. But the case files in this new detective mode isn't the only way the great detective handles an investigation, and in his hunt for Penguin, we see a gnarlier tactic.
Where's the Penguin?
I don't know.
Where is he?
I swear.
Damn.
There's a running joke in Matt Reeves' Batman where Penguin keeps calling Bruce vengeance. It's Cobblepot's way of undermining Batman's brutality, an attempt to show he's not scared of him. But this scene where Batman interrogates Penguin's henchman, Loose Lips, shows us how vengeance fuels him. He demands to know where Penguin is, but he gets carried away, choking the thug until he's out cold. Again, he makes a mistake. There's a necessary suspension of disbelief when it comes to Batman's no-killing rule, especially in Rocksteady's Arkham games. A pact is made between the player and the game that Batman's deliberateness and restraint is always implied, even when it looks like he's splitting open heads. Batman is hyper-intelligent, so even though he rams the Batmobile into Bane, or buries Croc under debris, or slams Penguin off a ledge, or electrocutes a henchman with the Batmobile, he has calculated every possibility down to the last decimal point, so his attacks are non-lethal. That restraint is not implied in Origins. In fact, if we complete all of the case files, we get to witness a Batman who is seconds away from killing a murderer, before just pulling himself back from the brink. This detective sequence takes place in Crime Alley, so the reminder of his parents' death doesn't just make him angry, it makes him blind. Across the story, we see this Batman mess up, even if he messes up in cool and interesting ways so we're not playing as an effective hero. And because it's not implied, it makes scenes like this much more tense. Bats brings Loose Lips up to the top of a nearby building and tries a different tact. He dangles him over a long drop, scaring him with theatrics rather than knuckles and pain, and once he's got what he needs, he drops him into a Christmas tree. We'll later learn that this didn't kill him, but the way the scene is framed makes it seem like luck rather than calculation, casting Bats as a dark shadow silhouetted against the moon. Na Batman! This hardcore interrogation is contrasted half an hour later. Penguin's on a ship called the Final Offer in the Gotham dockyard, holding a Christmas Eve fighting tournament. It's an ingenious setup. Penguin can't technically be arrested for his illegal arms dealings because the final offer isn't under US jurisdiction. I don't know if that would hold up in court, somebody get legal eagle on it, but for Gotham, sure, why not? While in here, Bats needs to creep through the groaning, punctured vessel to make it to his target, and gets caught up in a second, scripted interrogation. But this time, the approach is a little bit different.
Where's Cobblepot? I ain't telling you, Jack. A little more pressure and I'll crush your larynx. What's it going to be?
All right. He's in his office.
He's particular with this threat. He explains exactly what's going to happen if the goon doesn't cooperate. He holds back, not resorting to the blind, muscle-bound roaring and crunching that made Loose Lips pass out before he could deliver the goods. It's small, subtle touches, but we will see this evolve later on when he interrogates Black Mask. Don't worry, I'll point it out when we get there. Penguin's fighting ring is where we're introduced to Lester Buczynski, aka the Electrocutioner. He's here fighting idiots for some reason rather than out hunting for Batman like the other assassins. This might be one of the most complex boss battles in the entire series, and it's brave of WB Montreal to blow their load so early on. Thankfully, if you're struggling, Boss Fight Database have a pretty comprehensive walkthrough on their channel. I'll link it below. What you've got to do is walk towards him and press X.
Who wants to show me where the Penguin is?
What was your favourite part of that joke? Was it the bit where it went on too long? Let me know in the comments. Electrocutioner goes down in one hit. It's a joke fight to show us how Batman's arrogance is only topped by the assassins who have come to Gotham to hunt for him. Do I wish there was an actual boss with him? Yes. Did I laugh the first time I played it? Also, yes. Does the next boss make up for him? Hell yeah. Seeing us take down Electrocutioner, Penguin retreats deeper into his ship, past the gun shop, past the ornate decor, and past the casino. He's not gonna let us distract him, we're just a gimp in a batsuit. He's got real work to do tonight. An interrogation of his own. To reinforce that Christmas Eve is a turning point for Gotham, we catch a glimpse of what its Old Testament has looked like. Maroni versus Falcone versus Penguin versus Black Mask. Maroni isn't present in Origins, but the other three factions absolutely are, and it's through the henchman dialogue of all things that we see the class divide between Penguin's idiots and the more traditional mobsters. Penguin's man threatens a Falcone bodyguard that if he doesn't cooperate he'll be sleeping with the fishes, and the bodyguard laughs in his face, accusing him of being out of his depth. Penguin is torturing Alberto Falcone, the Roman's son, but even though Alberto agrees to get his father to stop encroaching on Penguin's turf, Penguin, in his sadism, is torturing him anyway. It's another line that's been crossed tonight. There's an understanding that the old guard, like Falcone and Maroni, wouldn't stoop to this sort of cruelty. It's definitely something that's pointed out in the comics. The Long Halloween, the best Batman story of all time, there's my line in the sand, gives us a Falcone that's furious because he thinks his competitor is killing off his family. It turns out in old Gotham, not everything is fair in love and war. Penguin, just like Black Mask, represents that overlap. Even when it's not helmed by Rocksteady, we're seeing that exploration of the old versus the new. Asylum showed it through its architecture, City showed it through its technology, and Origins shows it through the evolution of its villains. But Bats, in his impatience, crashes the party. He's not here to save Falcone. Rescuing criminals isn't something he'll consider so early in his career. He just wants to get information from Penguin, and hurt him in the process. Ouch.
I seen your act! I ain't done nothing you not done!
Penguin doesn't see us as the Dark Knight. He thought we would understand. He's seen our act, he says. He's not done anything we've not done. He thinks we're just like him. But Penguin is the kind of criminal Batman dons the cowl for. He's a superstitious and cowardly sort, so beating him to a pulp works wonders. Battered, bruised, and terrified, Penguin tells us Black Mask is headquartered at Lacey Towers, but rumour has it someone was killed there just a couple of hours ago. But before Bats can do anything with this information, our third assassin enters the ring, Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. And if you were following the marketing material, this was likely the one you were waiting for. What you're seeing on screen right now is from the trailer that WB Montreal brought to E3, led by Deadpool director Tim Miller of all people, which is pretty poetic seeing as Deadpool was originally conceived as a parody of Deathstroke. It's beautifully animated, showing Batman work in the shadows to scare some goons at a dockyard, eventually leading into a badass 2-minute sequence where Bruce and Deathstroke fight across some shipping containers. It's enough for anyone to get hyped for a new Arkham game, no matter who is making it. The battle with Deathstroke tests our endurance. Even with perfect gameplay, it's likely to last a solid 5 minutes, where Slade is constantly on the attack. 3 phases keeps us on our toes. Slade's not just a master combatant. In the comics, he's a master strategist, constantly able to see 2 or 3 moves ahead. There are times where that's bled into sociopathic behaviour, like when he put a hit out on his daughter Rose just so he could spend more time with her. We need to think strategically about how we get around his ability to counter our moves. I've seen criticisms that it's a QTE-infused mess, and that breaks my heart, because if that's the impression this fight's given you, you're locking yourself off from the second best boss battle in the Arkhamverse. For the record, I'm sticking Mr. Freeze at number 1 because I love Predator mode so much. He's in shock as we defeat him, questioning if we're even human. As Batman knocks him unconscious, we're rewarded with a brand new gadget, the Remote Claw, a tool that Deathstroke used so confidently in our fight that it's been built up as a bit of a game changer. And it will be, but to talk about that, we need to shift focus entirely. So, let's look at gadgets and upgrades.
The police believe Penguin murdered Black Mask, but why would he send me here if he was the killer? It doesn't add up.
Black Mask's penthouse was set ablaze. The place is trashed. Bullet holes line the walls and furniture, and the corpse of his girlfriend, Tiffany Ambrose, hangs loosely from a chandelier. Bats stares at her body and coldly remarks that she was no angel. But even if he's not shocked by the crime scene, it's likely we will be. There was a murder here. Black Mask was forced to shoot and kill Tiffany by a mysterious man known only as the Joker. While who and what the Joker is hardly a mystery, the scene itself is a ferocious mess, and considering this, technically, acts as Arkham's canonical introduction to the Clown Prince, I wouldn't have it any other way. A lifeless room tells us he's dangerous, and now he's nowhere to be seen. If we're going to learn more, we need to infiltrate the Gotham City Police headquarters and access the National Crime Database, which offers the perfect opportunity to rummage around in Batman's toy box and look at his new gadgets. Arkham Origins brings 4 new tools to the table: Deathstroke's Remote Claw, the Glue Grenade, the Concussion Detonator, and the Shock Gloves. Everything else, like the Disruptor, is a carryover from Arkham City. And if I'm being frank, I wish WB Montreal took more risks when it came to how the gadgetry was designed. This whole setup is a slave to the canon. Bats can't have anything too crazy, or else it wouldn't make sense that he got rid of it by the time Arkham Asylum rolled around. Okay, fair enough, but what if WB Montreal decided to work backwards instead? With the Batman that's only been operating for 24 months, there's an opportunity to double down on a rough and raw vigilante with a stripped back arsenal of gadgets. He would still grapple, he would still glide, but stuff like the cryptographic sequencer, which somehow manages to drizzle into this bloody game like a virus, could have been taken out of Origins. Imagine a game where we don't have our smoke pellets, and instead stealth arenas have a junction box we could sabotage to momentarily turn out the lights and inhibit thugs that way. Perhaps explosive gel would be needed to destroy weapons caches and remove a threat from a combat or stealth arena. Or maybe we wouldn't have the explosive gel, so crumbling concrete walls would be replaced with wooden panels. This would mean Batman wouldn't be able to time takedowns from far away anymore, meaning he's down in the dirt more often and would need to risk being vulnerable. The slickness of Batman's tech could have generally given way to scrappier, more cobbled together technology. He steals 2 of his gadgets from his villains anyway. The Remote Claw comes from Deathstroke, and the Shock Gloves come from Electrocutioner, so there's no danger of losing any of that classic Batman preparedness if Montreal went in this direction. It's one of those areas where it feels like the team were afraid of changing too much in case Arkham fans got upset that Origins Batman didn't feel as powerful as City's Batman. I think limiting the gadgets a little would have forced more improvisational play so long as the level design reflected that. In an interview with OzGamers, Eric Holmes said, quote, "Batman's younger and rawer, so he doesn't have all the same gadgets. I think there's always a pressure to bring new gadgets and new items to any Batman excursion in any form, so we added new ones. We did create some holes by removing others, but you'll have new additions which will make things feel refreshed and new and empowered in a new way." But I don't think Batman feels younger and rawer. He's written that way, really effectively in fact, but it feels like he's been preparing for a fight against Deathstroke and Bane and Copperhead long before they're on his radar as a threat to Gotham. And those holes that Holmes talks about, the gadgets that have been removed, they total at 4. Kind of. The line launcher is missing, but it's been replaced with the Remote Claw. The freeze grenade is missing, but it's been replaced with the glue grenade. The mine detonator is just a disruptor upgrade that's no longer available, but none of Origins enemies use mines, so it's not a loss. Which means that, really, the only useful gadget we're missing is a remote electrical charge. Please take a moment to salute our fallen hero.
An old man turned
But fine, okay, let's not lament what Montreal could have done. Instead, let's focus on what they've given us. Inside the GCPD, we see Jim Gordon preparing to lead a citywide manhunt against us. Having finally seen Batman in the flesh, he thinks we're bad news, but wants to be sure that we're brought in by the book.
I worked out a deal with our pal Black Mask. If any of us can kill the Bat before the assassins get to him, we get the bounty.
Unfortunately, the cops have other ideas. They're all as corrupt as they come. Big shocker, and Batman's got ACAB tattooed on his ass, so he doesn't fancy a chat. This means we'll be relying on our new toy, the remote claw, to stay out of sight. It's less agile than the line launcher because it's just contextual. We can't use it on anything, just certain objects in the environment. This does give us a little bit of limitation, but it's so awesome in other ways that I don't think you can seriously look at it and say it's a downgrade. If anything, I'm shocked Batman didn't keep this for future adventures. The remote claw opens up the world to us because it can hook onto parts of the level design that would otherwise be blocked off. It builds a better hero because it lets us completely transform stealth and combat arenas. It can connect gargoyles so we can move between them. It can slam two enemies together. It can zap thugs up to gargoyles, essentially giving us an inverted takedown without all of the waiting that happened in Arkham Asylum and City. It can connect a fire extinguisher to a goon so it knocks them out and tosses up a smoke cloud to hide in, or explosive containers for an area of effect attack during combat. This thing is a dream. Such a dream, in fact, that you could argue that it makes stealth too easy, and not enough is done to disincentivize it. There's no limit to its use in stealth arenas aside from the fact that a gargoyle can only dangle one bad guy at a time. The concussion blast is combat and stealth specific and can be quick fired like the Batclaw or explosive gel. It's a timed explosive that, when it goes off, can stun nearby enemies. It's neat. It operates as an area effect stun that has the same radius as the area effect stun on Batman's cape. It doesn't open up the world and doesn't add anything except another projectile, but it's there. The core of the Disruptor, a gadget Batman's going to get right now, hasn't changed, aside from the fact it's a gun now, but it's been given some further use because turrets are now set up in some of the levels as traps. This is awesome because it finally makes the level design feel deadly in itself and arms us with a way to overcome that deadliness. The shot gloves find their value in combat, so I'm going to hold off on going too deep on them for now. They open up the world by letting us hold a button and charge generators that open shutters. There's another missed opportunity, I think, where this generator mechanic could be fleshed out to play a role in stealth or combat. Maybe a generator would need to be powered up in stages while holding off a horde of bad guys. The idea is there, but only in the closing minutes of the Cold Cold Heart DLC.
I need access to the National Criminal Database.
It's right here.
You must spend a lot of time here.
Cool poem box. You're bypassing the network security. But you'll need to physically bridge the intranet to the external telecom wires if you want to uplink remotely.
If you've watched my other Batman critiques, you'll know I'm biased, but I love this interaction. Babs and Bats meet for the first time. Batman hacks into the National Criminal Database, but Barbara points out that we'll need to access the manual override if we're going to get full access. Bruce brushes her off, but Barbara doesn't lose her enthusiasm. Calmly, she tells us that we'll need to go through the sewers. The scene is just so efficiently written, conveying the efficiency of Barbara as a character. She's straight to the point, complimentary, clearly inspired by Batman's work, and most importantly of all, helpful. She's distrustful of Gotham's cops, but isn't ready to give up on the system as a whole. Not yet. Her dad is the captain after all, but here we can see the spark of a vigilante light up in her eyes as she lays out the plan. I've nothing but good stuff to say about her. Now, if only I could say the same thing about the upgrade system. I've been pretty measured about Origins so far. That's mainly because there's a lot I love about the game, but it's also because I've been saving up all of my ire for when we talk about how it handled XP, upgrades, and the UI, because it's not just a disappointment, it's all bad, and I don't really know where to start. Wait, no, yes I do. Upgrades aren't just hidden behind XP, they're hidden behind the Dark Knight system, a series of challenges broken up into 4 camps. There's Shadow Vigilante, challenges which test combat, Gotham Protector, challenges which test gliding, Worst Nightmare, challenges which test stealth, and World's Greatest Detective, which aren't specific challenges, they're just extra XP that's awarded to us the closer we get to 100% completion. You know, like the crap tiers on a battle pass. Say, for example, you want to get the Sonic Batarang gadget. Do you just unlock it in the upgrade menu? No, of course not. Don't be stupid. You need to perform an inverted takedown, a vent takedown, and a wall takedown. Then perform 3 silent takedowns in a single stealth section, then finish a stealth section without being seen, then get enough experience points to level up. In that order. Even though it's step 3 that unlocks the Sonic Batarang, you can't do step 3 without doing step 1 first. In a remarkable ability for WB Montreal to see into the future, this system doesn't feel like optional challenges to test our skills, it feels like completing dailies. That linearity is a problem on the whole when it comes to the upgrade menu. Look at the Arkham City upgrade screen. It's clean, it's simple. At a glance, it shows you how many options are available to you. You can go anywhere and upgrade anything at any point. Any abilities that were locked off were only locked off because we needed to get a gadget in the main campaign first. Here's Arkham Origins screen, a barrage of rows and lines and linearity. To go back to that example with the Sonic Batarang, you don't just need to complete 3 ranks of Worst Nightmare first, you need to complete 3 ranks and then upgrade some other gadgets to even get to the bloody thing. Say goodbye to player choice because you won't get to find your Batman until you've reached 100% completion. We're also unlocking a lot of our old abilities from Arkham City for the sake of canon. Again, this goes back to the game's fundamental design philosophy. Rather than take Arkham's gadgets in a fresh new direction, stripping back and concentrating on a different array of abilities, Montreal tried to cram in as much of Arkham City as possible when it wasn't needed to make an interesting Batman game. Almost like they're trying to justify locking so many upgrades and abilities behind linearity, optional challenges and side missions, Origins vastly overcompensates with how much XP you get. It is never ending, and you earn some for the most ridiculous, unnecessary bullshit.
Don't sell yourself short, Alfred.
I'm only being realistic. Listen. Disable more of his towers and I can locate him. Then we won't have to search for information. He'll give it to you himself.
I'm on it.
Alfred Wisdom. It's a problem with the UI as a whole. The game doesn't stop yelling at you. No wonder Bats keeps fucking up, because he's constantly blindsided by numbers, grades, and more numbers. You like numbers? Look at them go, cluttering up the screen. This is fun and immersive. WB Montreal didn't just regurgitate this from the Arkham City code that Rocksteady sent over. Somebody thought about this, pitched it, and then members of the team had to design and program it in. Debates, presumably, were had in meeting rooms about how quick the animation was, about whether the font was clear enough. This isn't Devil May Cry. I don't need you to tell me how well a combat sequence went. I know how well it went. I just played it. I don't need you to give me an arbitrary scorecard to stealth takedowns. I think the inverted takedown is cooler than the explosive gel takedown. Whether or not I feel cool as Batman is the only feedback needed in the main campaign. What do you mean Arkham Knight does this too? The UI tells us that this isn't a rough and ready Batman. He's programmed the Bat computer with such depth that it can assess his moves and skills while out on patrol and gives him immediate feedback whether he's asking for it or not. It's the first time I ever wanted an Arkham game to shut its visual noise up. Anyway, grand, I got that one out of my system, hooray, and in that time, Batman has run into Jim Gordon. So let's see what the Captain has to say for himself.
I don't want to hurt you, but you need to stay out of my way. Never. Listen, I'm on your side.
My side? My side works within the law. My side doesn't leave suspects with broken bones and missing teeth. We've earned Gotham's respect.
What I love about the Gordon-Batman relationship is how Origins Batman has been effectively set up as bending the rules of his code, while Gordon sticks to his. He refuses to open fire on Bruce, and Bats exploits that by slamming him to the ground. It positions Gordon as an influence on Batman's arc. He will eventually go on to be just as stoic and unbendable as Gordon in this universe, so the implication is that as their relationship evolves post-game, Batman might be inspired by Gordon's rigor. It's awesome. If you go down to the sewers today, you're in for a big surprise. Batman descends beneath the city to establish that manual connection to the National Criminal Database. Black Mask's goons have armed explosives under the city, an act of incredulous madness the Bats can barely believe. But as he disarms them, he prepares to learn more about the Joker. Answers are just around the corner, but oh wait, no, we've got to handle a radio tower first, that's fun. Batman will need to stop the interesting mystery and detective work to fly over to a Gotham City radio tower and reactivate it. This gives us 2 rewards. The first is a fast travel point. The second is our map gets to be engulfed by a buzz of tiny rectangles that tell us where network relays are, like some biblical locust swarm. There are 7 radio towers in total, with obstacles to overcome that range from fighting some goons and smashing a generator to using the remote Batarang to depower an electric fence. And in these towers, we get some FaceTime with our old pal, the Riddler.
Well, if it isn't the King Thug himself. Figured it was only a matter of time before you showed up. Sorry about the mess downstairs.
Who is this?
Think of me as a great big mystery, one you're never going to solve.
The Edward Nygma we get at the start of his journey is a very different man from who he'll eventually evolve into. The obnoxiousness is still there, the egomania has started to develop, but in Origins he sees himself as a vigilante, with a mission not so different from Batman's. If anything, Edward's mission is more effective. He's working under the alias of Enigma, not Riddler, which, fun fact, is the name of his daughter in the comics. He stored up blackmail about the city's most corrupt individuals: Commissioner Loeb, Warden Joseph, Alberto Falcone, Black Mask, Bane, Shiva, Penguin, Quincy Sharp, Detective Brandon, Judge Harkness. He's got a whole cacophony of dirt on the worst that Gotham has to offer, and he's gearing up to release it. So, we have to stop him, because Enigma's annoying, I guess? Origins frames itself as the first game in the franchise where Bats and Riddler really speak to each other. We see Bruce's belligerence in how he talks through Enigma, refusing to engage with the obvious common ground that they have. This is a man who is ingenious. He currently works for the GCPD and is waging a one-man war against corruption. If Arkham City's Batman met him, he'd probably try to recruit him to the Bat family, but instead we witness a Batman who takes Enigma's good intentions, discards them, and lays the groundwork for Edward to transform into the Riddler. In the other Arkham games, it feels like Riddler is just one maniac of many. In Origins, the radio towers in particular make him have a larger presence, arguably too large. But this setup and the extortion files we get to hear are generally fantastic. They double down on how rotten Gotham's Old Testament was and how big a job it will be to gut it. But mechanically, this is the worst Riddler in the franchise. I don't care if you hate race car Riddler or not, those might be tricky and frustrating, but Origins Riddler is tedious, and the checklist of radio towers are just the start. 3 of the towers are mandatory parts of the campaign. That's 43%. 43% of them are non-optional. A sign of the times, I suppose. Far Cry 3 released just a couple of months before Origins, and we know how much that franchise loves its radio towers, but it's enough to make me go a little radio gaga, and it shows us how differently WB Montreal and Rocksteady approached the concept of an open world. Arkham City was smaller, so it felt like a box of treats to feast upon. Origins is bigger, and it feels like it was built first and stuffed as an afterthought. But first, Bats is connected to the crime database. Let's check in on him and see where he's off to next.
Alfred, see if you can find any information on someone named the Joker.
Searching now, sir. There doesn't seem to be anything coming up. What do you know about him?
Not much, but he's taken Black Mask hostage.
Hostage? So Sionis isn't dead?
I don't think so. From what I can tell, he's worth more to the Joker alive. The Joker wants to use him to break into the Gotham Merchants Bank. I'm on my way there now.
Arkham Origins is twice the size of Arkham City, and as Bats flies over to Gotham Merchants Bank to finally confront Black Mask, we feel that sense of scale. 2 parts of the city are separated by the Pioneer Bridge. Old Gotham gives us the Bowery, Park Row, Amusement Mile, Sheldon Park, and the Industrial District. It's Arkham City's map. WB Montreal have decided to build on top of the foundations Rocksteady set up here, the same way Gotham's architects build atop the city's old buildings. New Gotham gives us Coventry, the Diamond District, and Burnley. This is all brand new, and when you hear the development talk and dream about their Gotham, the distinct beauty in its design comes through best. Quote, "The structures of Gotham are old and repurposed," Jeremy Price, the game's art director, said in the game's art book. "Nothing is built new, everything is built onto. Pipes, ventilation, ductwork, and metal reinforcements are all retrofitted on the exteriors of old buildings. Like the Centre Georges Pompidou of Paris, the insides are on the outside." Looking at just one random building in one random district of the city, we immediately see that. The old Gothic brickwork has strange piping bulging out of the side, connecting one building to another for unknown reasons. We don't ever see inside the apartment of your average Gothamite, but just one look at a building like this lets our imagination run wild with how cramped and run down it must be. A billboard is blocking a row of windows here, for Christ's sake. The streets are empty because of a winter storm blowing in, taking the snowy effect of Arkham City and doubling down on it. A lot of the roads are closed off, forcing us to regularly take to the skies because of how unwieldy its architecture is. Just like in Arkham City, this makes Gotham feel ethereal and otherworldly. Its roads lead to dead ends, and it's impossible to walk from one end of the map to the other because its city plan doesn't make sense. Is this unrealistic? Sure. Does it matter? Not at all. It makes Origins Gotham feel distinct. This isn't a real city. It's locked somewhere between realism and surrealism, just like it should be. Originally, the streets were going to be coated in evacuation signage to reinforce why the population is missing, but Eric Holmes pushed for this to be scrapped. He wanted the warmth of Christmas to peek through as much as possible to give Gotham a true sense of place and livability. Overdoing the evacuation angle would have diluted that. The Monarch Theatre is cradled in Christmas lights like a dark joke, a setting that's important to this Batman's past with the death of his parents and his future, the deaths of Talia and Joker, almost seem to taunt us because it's so whimsically lit. Sheldon Park makes Wonder Tower look like the city attraction it was originally supposed to be, no longer a symbol of Hugo Strange's fascism. Jezebel Plaza is the true environmental standout because of how lovingly it's been crafted. Gotham might be a shithole, but it's still Christmas and people still live here. You can see its humanity hum away, even if it's just in the form of Christmas decorations. The storm is a clever excuse to clear the streets, and an easy way for Montreal to paint over Arkham City and make the open world feel new. But its inclusion does make this the least pleasant Arkham world to fly around, just because of how grey everything is. The architecture is breathtaking, the Christmas decorations are charming, the neon lights glimmer through the storm to add splashes of vibrancy and colour. But if I was faced with a day flying around Arkham City's villain-led madness, Arkham Knight's rain-soaked crisp tension, or Arkham Origins' flourishing winter storm, I wouldn't choose Origins. There's another reason why I say that. Gliding around in Origins doesn't feel as good as gliding around in City. There are a lot of arbitrary, you can't grapple here moments, especially in New Gotham. Getting around the Arkham City map is fine because the buildings are generally lower, but in New Gotham, where we have a chunk of high-rises and skyscrapers, Bats feels clunky. There are a whole host of buildings he simply can't reach the top of, which makes him feel like he's been handicapped by the developers. The rooftops of the Gotham City Royal Hotel are off limits. The same goes for Lacey Towers. That's fine, these are campaign-specific locations, so the devs probably wanted to add some limitations, but there are a bunch of blind spots where it just feels like the team have forgotten to allocate some surfaces as grapple-worthy, and that sort of jank is a bit of a letdown for the Arkhamverse's first ever version of Gotham. We notice it best when trying to get across the bloody bridge. I don't think it's unfair of me to say that the infamous Pioneer Bridge adds a full hour of playtime to Origins, because you will be gliding back and forth, back and bloody forth if you're like me and don't want to engage with the fast travel system. I should love gliding around Gotham. I shouldn't want to fast travel at any point, because the two districts individually aren't that big, but grappling across the same mile of concrete and cars for the 13th time is enough to force anyone's hand. It's simply too long, and it's like this because there's a whole dungeon sitting underneath it that we need to clamber through during a Firefly section later on. But I don't think anyone would mind if the bridge was shorter and disproportionate from that dungeon. But, as I hinted to earlier, the biggest problem with Arkham Origins' world isn't the world itself, it's what it's littered with. Regularly, bats will tune in to the GCPD radio, which will flag some crimes in progress for us to stop. These can range from some goons standing in an alley minding their own business, some goons trying to break into an ATM, or some goons fighting some other goons on a street. All of them have the same objective: fly down, beat up a group of idiots, and grapple away. In the endgame, 16 markers are added to our map that show us where escaped Blackgate prisoners are hiding out, but they don't add anything either. They're a marked improvement over Arkham City's random interrogations, but not by much, because the variety simply isn't there. But that's not the end of the story, so let's go back to the Riddler. Riddle, riddle, riddle me this. What do you get when you take the Riddler's showmanship away from him?
You ever consider maybe you're not as clever as you think?
Says the man who seems to have mistaken Christmas Eve for Halloween.
That's right, a nerd on a laptop, and I don't know if you've been on a Batman subreddit lately, but nerds on laptops are pretty dull. Because Origins has written an Eddie who hasn't embraced his Riddler persona yet, the game doesn't have riddles, which means the flavor text on the whole is distinctly lacking. There are a couple of fun Easter eggs, sure, Penelope Young's apartment complex in Lacey Towers, the Red Hood gang is on a corkboard in the Batcave, but no riddles equals a direct reduction in world building. That all-important part of Arkham Asylum and City is simply missing from Origins. If there are no riddles, that leaves just 4 collectibles in the game world. Cyrus Pinckney's plaques tell an interesting story behind the madness of Gotham's leading architect. It's a mystery I'm willing to bet a lot of you didn't even know existed because it's so well hidden. The Anarchy tags are bits of graffiti only accessible via detective mode, but as always, it's the Riddler's contributions that will take up the most time. The network relays and the Riddler data packs. Remember the Joker teeth? Remember the balloons? Remember the tiger cameras? Take them away and replace them with 70 network relays, and you've described a good chunk of what you'll be doing in Origins open world. See a green square, throw a batarang at it, move on. At least City's monotonous collectibles had some variety. The meat of this mission is in the data packs though. This time there are 200 of them, a thankful reduction from Arkham City's huge number, but the act of collecting them is much less interesting if you've played the other games, because a lot of these puzzle solutions are ripped right out of Arkham City, and because of that, there is an immediate and arguably necessary comparison that keeps coming up with each one you collect. There are no new ideas here. You still glide to panels, or use the cryptographic sequencer, or use the explosive gel to knock down walls, or use the cryptographic sequencer. If anything, the complexity has been reduced. Arkham City had Riddler trophies that were traps, or trophies that required numerous gadgets to unlock. That doesn't happen here. One gadget, one solution. No traps, no tricks, and a whole host of the data packs are just lying around in the open world, waiting for a pigeon to grab and fly off with. This was a minor complaint in my City critique, but it is doubly so here. There might be less to collect, but the ratio of interesting data packs to dull data packs leans heavily towards the dull. Out of all of the games, capturing the Riddler became the biggest grind of all. And our reward?
Looks like he's no longer an imminent threat. I can close this case. For now, at least.
Well, that's dissatisfying.
It's been you this whole time. You hired the assassins. You've been running Sionis' operation.
Well, technically it's my operation now. Isn't that right, boys?
Much to everyone's surprise, in 2013, Arkham Origins is a Batman and Joker story. Roman Sionis was a red herring. He's just a thug in a mask. He could not and would not have orchestrated something as grandiose as a city-wide bat hunt by international assassins or bombs in the sewers. He's not that crazy, but the Joker is. His introduction heralds a pretty surprising twist, and that viciousness we saw on the Lacey Towers crime scene is carried into his reveal. I understand why people were disappointed that Joker was this game's mastermind. He's already been the big bad for Asylum and City, and would later go on to be a huge part of Arkham Knight. Fans were ready for a shake-up. The marketing for Origins made it seem like he'd be a bit player, used similarly to his portrayal in stories like The Long Halloween or Hush. And now here he is, bathing in saturation, cackling maniacally, behaving unpredictably, literally kicking Black Mask into the dirt and taking his place. For me, I really like this reveal. To the backdrop of a bank manager laughing herself to death, Joker's power in this scene is his indifference. He doesn't care about us, not yet. He's got his own plan to conquer Gotham's underworld. We're just in his way. He couldn't care less if we died right here, right now, or killed off screen by some assassin. In fact, he cares so little that he opens fire almost immediately. The setting of this reveal says 1,000 words in its own right. It's a classic Batman jaunt. A colourful criminal is robbing a bank, taking over Black Mask's gang, killing a witness, stealing some money. They're all signals that Joker is in his criminal infancy. He's operating like your archetypal mobster here, just with a little more flair. He's not fully evolved into the Clown Prince yet. Roger Craig Smith from the award-winning Bugsnax replaced Kevin Conroy as Batman, so Troy Baker had to replace Mark Hamill as Joker. Hamill wouldn't have reprised the role even if they'd asked. He's gone on the record that he refuses to play Joker unless Conroy is playing Batman. But the main reason for this replacement was because WB Montreal wanted to focus on the youthfulness of both characters. Asylum gave us a torturous Joker with a multi-layered plan. City gave us a scared and desperate Joker. Origins gives us a Joker full of vigor and playfulness, and that was Troy Baker's top priority. In an interview with Outside Xbox, he said, quote, "I didn't want to just do a copy of Mark Hamill. I wouldn't have accepted the role if that's what they were looking for. I wanted to look at the childishness of this Joker, and I think we got it." This twist also adds a bit of poetry to Arkham City. In that game, Joker and Harley took over the Sionis Steel Mill, Black Mask's headquarters, and transformed it into a boiling funhouse. Pretty fun that Origins tells us he's got a knack for stealing Black Mask's stuff. And in fact, the Steel Mill is exactly where he's escaping to right now. With an explosive exit, Joker disappears into the night, taking Black Mask hostage and leaving Bats alone with a corpse. Another failure to add to his belt. tracing Black Mask's signal to the steel mill, Batman prepares to rescue the mobster before any more blood can be spilled. It's locked down, and assassin number 4 is somewhere in here, stalking us. Joker's big entrance marks the main campaign's turning point. It's no longer about the assassins, it's about apprehending Joker. In fact, 2 of our assassins, Shiva and Deadshot, don't actually appear in the story, they're saved for the side missions. So, while the Bat skulks through vents and piping, hunting for Roman Sionis, let's jump back into the open world and look at Origins' side quests, because they're one hell of a mixed bag.
You were very cordially, you were very cordially invited to a party.
Mad Hatter isn't one of the assassins, but he's so memorable he might as well be. His sequence is a stretch of both Batman's imagination and the artists who helped create it. It's Asylum Scarecrow levels with a twist. This time, there's no haunted doctor hunting for us. Instead, we need to deal with murderous traps and finicky controls in a race to take him down. Just like in City, he's one and done. I wouldn't change a single thing. It's whimsical, and while Hatter's predatory nature is often implied in stories that include him, he's just as infant as Joker is in his villain arc, and that makes him all the more dangerous. He's kidnapped a young girl, Alice, his typical MO in the comics, and thinks that she's broken. He truly believes that this is Alice from Lewis Carroll's novel, but she's just forgotten who she is. He wants our help to test out his newest hat, and the fact he leads with a simple rhyming song shows the childlike bewilderment that characterizes his psychopathy. Oh, and did you know that Laura Bailey voices Alice? Black Widow, Mary Jane Watson, Selena Kyle, and Vixalia voice actor Laura Bailey was brought in for like 2 lines. You'll love to see it.
Hello, Batman? It's Barbara. Sorry for hacking into your comms, but I need a favor. Some evidence crates have gone missing. Army-grade stuff, and no one here's doing anything about it.
Penguin's side mission exists for one reason and one reason only. Barbara Gordon. Oswald Cobblepot has weapons crates stashed around the city. Some deals are going down that could arm Gotham's criminals with bigger, badder, scarier guns, and we need to destroy them. There are 6 in total, with tiny icons on our map indicating where they are. With each one destroyed, a quick call with Babs lets us trace her disillusionment with the GCPD, laying the foundations for her eventual rise as Batgirl. Really, this quest has pretty much nothing to do with the Penguin. We don't see him again, nothing about his history is revealed. They're neat because of their specificity, but if you take Barbara out of the equation, they're no different from a generic active crime.
The Bat! You have come as Bane said you would. Fly down from your perch then, so I can kill you.
I thought you'd never ask.
Bane's impressiveness doesn't just come from his ferocious strength and his strategic mind. It comes from the cultish loyalty he inspires in his followers. In the original Nightfall story, he had 3 lieutenants. Zombie, who specialized in knives, Trog, who's a wee guy, look at him go, and Bird, who leads this side quest. Really, it's just an excuse to beat up a handful of gangs around Gotham. There's a real missed opportunity to explore Bane's incredible leadership skills. He doesn't lead through fear like Joker or money like Black Mask. He inspires a slavish adoration among his men. And even though we get a badass fight in a nightclub to finish off this quest, Bird gives us pretty much nothing else of note. It's a shame and a waste.
I was hoping to get a minute of your time. See, I've got a story to tell you. About crime and violence, greed and vengeance. But it's also a story of redemption, of second chances, of change.
Bringing anarchy into the Arkhamverse is one of the more unique ideas WB Montreal bring to the franchise. His game look came from Occupy Wall Street, but his comic book inspirations come from across the artistic spectrum, from V in V for Vendetta to Chopper from Judge Dredd to his creator Alan Grant's own anarchistic sympathies. He joins Riddler in the fact he has a sincere, valuable point to make about the state of Gotham, and this Bat's reductiveness means they can't find any common ground. Anarchy is anti-corporate, anti-government, but strangely, pro-Batman, which makes me very keen to see an eventual story where he learns that Bats is actually billionaire Bruce Wayne. He's planted 3 bombs across Gotham and believes Batman would support this idea, not revolt against it. A timer counts down as we test our gliding, soaring over rooftops to reach and disarm each bomb in time, and it ends with a brawl in the Solomon Wayne courthouse. Years from now, Harvey Two-Face will redesign this space to reflect his fractured psyche, but Anarchy is using it as a base of operations. Anarchy's defeat offers up the greatest indictment of Bruce's war on crime, but also the greatest defense of it. Tied up, he accuses Bats of not caring about justice. "We're not all as strong as you," he says. "We don't have the fancy gadgets, the strength, the skill, but maybe that's the problem. You've gotten so used to that power that you think you're above reproach." But then he changes tact. "You ever wonder why things are so bad here?" he asks. Men like Cobblepot or Sionis are just a reflection of our apathy, our greed, our fear. We look the other way when things turn sour. Both of these things can be true. Bats does think he's above reproach. He thinks his no-killing rule and being gassed up on vengeance is enough to stop him from descending into villainy. What makes him so inspirational is his dedication, his deliberateness, and the fact that he isn't apathetic. He's doing something, just like Anarchy is doing something, or Riddler is doing something, and you don't need to agree with their actions to see their intentions as admirable. To enjoy Batman as a character, you don't need to think he's the best solution on the table. You just need to be fascinated by the willpower it would take to build a Batcave, a host of gadgets, and go out every night dressed as a bat to get the shit beaten out of him. I'm focusing so much on the Anarchy quest because it's a microcosm of how contemplative Origins writing is. Rocksteady's adoration of the character came through its fundamental mechanics, its atmosphere, and its world building. WB Montreal's adoration comes through the attention spent on the character writing.
By my count, there are still 9 more ribs I can break.
You think that'll make me talk? After what he's put me through, the torture, turned my men on me, stole from me, murdered my woman, he's my kill, not yours!
I can control your pacemaker remotely. You want to see what 250 beats per minute feels like?
Back in the steel mill, Batman rescues Roman Sionis. Even without the Black Mask moniker, he's as thick-skinned as ever, refusing to tell us where Joker is because he wants to kill the clown himself. Just like Anarchy said, Batman thinks he's above reproach. He wants to take down Joker, so he tortures Black Mask, hoping pain will make him talk. But just like with loose lips before, pain alone doesn't work. Bat sprains Roman's arm, that doesn't work. He punches him in the gut, that doesn't work. He breaks one of his ribs, that doesn't work. It isn't until he loses the blind rage and takes the calculated approach, hacking Roman's pacemaker, that it looks like he'll talk. But our fourth assassin, Copperhead, gets to us first. She poisons the bat, and in a haze, he prepares for her boss fight. Oh no, lots of Copperheads, which one is real? Apparitions descend out of the darkness. Only one version of Copperhead will take damage, but there's no immediate visual signifier of which one that is. This means our brutal, vengeful Batman needs to embrace his brutal, vengeful self and start lashing out blindly. It's a multi-foe boss fight, where the trick isn't prioritizing one target, but trying to lessen their numbers as quickly as possible so the real Copperhead can be found. She's the only boss, arguably, who lets the player embrace the wild, uncaged fury of our vigilante. If Deathstroke tested our counter skills, Copperhead tests free flow, and a liberal use of the explosive gel. In the kerfuffle, Black Mask gets away, off to prepare his own side quest, so let's leave Batman and Copperhead to it and go after him.
One way or another, I'm taking you in. Now we can do this the easy way,
or the hard way, but I think you know my choice.
Then we've got that in common too.
Black Mask's mission is tied with Bird and Penguin's for last place. It follows the exact formula as both of them, and to add bat salt to Battery, it steals its premise right out of Arkham City. Go to a few destinations in the open world, beat up some bad guys, and blow up a slightly edited Titan container asset. Repeat. For those of you who watched my Arkham City critique, you might be furrowing your brow, letting your fingers tap away, leaving a comment. After all, I said I really liked the Bane side quest in City. If this is just a copy of it, why don't I like this one? Well, first of all, don't let me stop you from leaving that comment. You have no idea how much it helps push these videos into the algorithm. Tell me your favorite Batman story, that'll do wonders. And second, Bane's side quest was convenient. The Titan containers were typically left on the main story path, so you come across them sooner or later. Black Mask's containers aren't. Bane's quest also felt relevant to the overarching narrative. We were cleaning up Titan that got out of Arkham Asylum. Batman had Titan coursing through his blood, so we don't want that happening to anyone else. Black Mask's containers are an unnamed chemical that lets him make drugs. Bane's quest ends with a sequence where we fight alongside him, so it got points for novelty. Black Mask's side quest ends with a regular fight in a reskinned church from Rocksteady's game. Every beat of this mission is a repeat of something Arkham City did better. While I don't mind Joker kicking Sionis to the curb and becoming the main big bad, the team really did him dirty with this side quest. If you're gonna relegate Black Mask to a bit part, you could at least give him something interesting to do.
I was expecting someone a little more intimidating.
You're through terrorizing Gotham.
If fate's decided today's the day, so be it. Just finish me quickly,
will you?
Deadshot's case file also rips off the basic structure of Arkham City, but it elevates it in almost every way, so it's hard to be mad. He's our fifth assassin, and lures Batman to Gotham Merchant Bank by setting up the mother of all trick shots that we need to decipher in Detective Vision. Detective Vision's improvements aside, what makes this side quest taste so sweet is that Deadshot gets a stealth boss fight at the end of it. There's a swift pace to the sequence because he can ricochet deadly bullets off of walls, meaning parts of the arena feel like some sort of laser trap the Bats needs to overcome while finding swift ways to crunch Deadshot into the concrete. It all ends with a tense hostage standoff. Just like Mad Hatter's mission, it's short and sweet, without an arbitrary checklist of icons preceding him.
I don't have time for this.
Somewhere in New Gotham, an innocent man is about to die. And we both know you won't allow that. So the question is, can you find him, Batman? Can you save him?
Our sixth assassin, Shiva, has an ominous introduction. The sound of a baby crying in an abandoned pram triggers her arrival. She's been watching Batman for some time now. Under the orders of Ra's al Ghul, she was instructed to test his mettle and see if he was worthy of joining the League of Assassins. And as bored as I am of the League, the structure of Shiva's quest is so effective because of her showmanship. She's got a couple of tests for the Bat. She's strung up a couple of cops and set a trap so she can assess his combat prowess. And in a game that robs a lot of its villains of their eventual flamboyance, she feels like a breath of fresh air because of how comic booky her mission design is. A bit of hostage saving, some assassins, theatrical presentation, it's all here and makes her short screen time feel much larger. She's also a necessary foil for this Batman because she and the League have given up on Gotham altogether. It's a cesspit beyond saving, but witnessing Batman shout her down, not aligning with the absolutist viewpoint, gives him a little bit of humanity. This Batman might be a bastard, but he still believes in Gotham. So, back to Copperhead. Defeating her, she tells us that Joker is holding a meeting with all of the remaining assassins at the Gotham Royal Hotel. Our next stop, Batman staggers outside the steel mill to reach an antidote that Alfred has managed to synthesize, but not before his failures of the night come jabbering and screaming at him in the form of hallucinations. Commissioner Loeb blames him for his death. Alfred tells him his parents would be disappointed in him. The bank manager that Joker gassed screeches that she would still be alive if it wasn't for him. Doesn't he know that he's inspired maniacs like the Joker? No matter which hallucination we're talking about, they all go back to the same thing. Deep down, Bruce is having doubts about his work. He's been on the job for 2 years and things seem to be getting worse, not better. Is he going about this the right way? Does Gotham really need Batman the way he is right now? Or does he need to be more than the violent vigilante? A good question, but not one that's going to be answered in our next section. Instead, let's talk about the punching. So here's the thing about combat in Arkham Origins. Its best part is also its worst. The fundamentals are still the same. Countering is key. Free flow and timed critical strikes propel each combat scenario into a whirling tornado of flips and kicks. Quick-fire gadgets give some versatility to the moveset. The special attacks give you area of effect moves that can end a fight before it begins if you manage your combos effectively. It's all here. Bruce even has a different stance to mark his inexperience, which is a really neat detail, but there's one big change that makes fighting in Origins distinctly different from fighting in City. This change is going to happen in a few minutes. Bats arrives at the Gotham Royal Hotel, which Joker has completely taken over and booby-trapped. An invitation is slathered on the walls in broken glass and paint. This is his headquarters for the night, and he's having a party just upstairs.
As you can see here, Batman deaths are coming in far below projections. We are really gonna have to turn this around.
And by we, I mean you.
There is just one other Joker scene in the entire franchise that tops this one. Everything about it is just absolutely stellar. So, with your permission, I just want to list off everything I love about it. Any objections? What's that? Can't hear you, speak up. I love how Joker is playing businessman. In line with the childishness established earlier, he's treating the gathering of psychopaths like a Wall Street businessman with doodles of graphs on a collection of TV screens. I love Bane's immediate dislike of Joker's extravagance. He's a serious criminal faced with a farce and it washes over his face like acid. I love how Joker chooses Electrocutioner to kill because he's already failed in his task. He was a joke to Batman and now he's a joke to the other villains as well. I love how Firefly takes off without a single word in this scene after Electrocutioner dies, implying that he's scared of this new maniac on the scene. I love that we see legitimate, organic uncertainty on the Joker's face when Bane stands up. We'll look at this in the next part, but Arkham's Joker isn't just an always laughing psychopath. There is legitimate depth here, and we see it flicker across his face. And finally, I just love Bane's plan, man. Batman is coming for the Joker, so he's gonna stand and wait for his foe to arrive, eager for a brawl. Electrocutioner's death means Batman gets to steal his shot gloves, and with their integration comes the crunch and sizzle of a major power boost. This is the flag that WB Montreal plants into the Arkham combat system to say, we are here and we have ideas too. Thematically, the shot gloves are perfect. They elevate Batman's violent nature. They do more damage, they break past your typical free flow obstacles like enemies with shields, and they can knock a thug to the ground ripe for a takedown with just one hit. These aren't the weapons of the Batman, these are the weapons of vengeance. Deliberateness, calculation, with the shot gloves, they don't matter. Bodies hit the deck or fly across the room with barely a second thought, and if you can combine these, free flow and the multi-ground takedown, a fight could be over in seconds. Custom takedowns are animated to go alongside them, so they feel special and specific. With gritted teeth, Bats will show the criminals of Gotham what shock and awe physically feels like, and we are encouraged to cheer this on with sadistic glee because of how it's framed. The ragdoll physics are already broken. Enemies will flop about some battles like bats have sucked their bones out through a straw, but with the shot gloves, they'll just fly away, off to crash into a gargoyle somewhere, and while it's dumb and should be fixed, it's also funny as hell, so I don't mind. We're encouraged to use the gloves too. I think it's really important to note that. Because they're so flashy and because they power up very quickly during fights. With every kick of a boot or smash of a fist, a little bar raises and raises, and typically you'll just need to get a combo of 8 to 10 tops before they're ready to use. By that point, the fight's over. But they also break the game and completely undermine the new enemy types WB Montreal have created. There are a few new basic baddies in Origins. The Armored Enforcer is a big stump of a man that goes into a berserker rage. They're based off of the design for the Abramovici twins, but are missing a weapon, instead relying on their massive fists and tackles to pummel bats into the dirt. They're not always 8 feet tall, there are smaller versions that are in Bane's faction, wearing Venom gear, so we need to beat them down twice. You stun them and give them a beatdown, similar to any body armor henchmen that flock to us in groups. Any opportunity to use the beatdown is very welcome, not just because it's cool, but because again, it forces old vengeance to come out of bats during gameplay. I just wish the animations for the beatdowns and finishers were a little more visceral to really double down on Batman's violence. Asylum and City's bat breaks arms and sprains ankles all day long, so something like an X-ray zoom in on broken bones, Mortal Kombat style, could add some spice to Origins. Just because Batman doesn't kill doesn't mean he can't be gratuitous this early in his career. Where's the blood, guys? The martial artists are the real standout though. They necessitate a more detailed counter strategy because they can counter our counters, so you get more counters than in IKEA. Having 2 or 3 of them in a combat arena will mark an immediate spike in difficulty, because they don't just counter, they dodge as well. They're the League's assassins on steroids. Shame then that there's not an in-universe reason for them being here. The only factions that don't have them are the GCPD and Anarchy's crew, duh. But it seems like Joker, Penguin, Black Mask and Bane have all found a Kung Fu Craigslist and put an ad out.
You know you are a little late for supper. Lucky for you, your dear friend just refused to start the meal without you. Apparently he prefers his dishes served cold.
As much as I like both of these new inclusions, the shot gloves make them null and void. We're just past the halfway point now. There are a lot of fights left to come. As he works his way up higher and higher through the Gotham Royal Hotel, Batman will eventually find himself in a combat ring surrounded by Joker's henchmen. Joker has twisted this floor into his own personal funland, where he's strung up his goons and Bats needs to save them from various torture devices. The clown grows more and more interested as Batman saves people and overcomes his traps. We had his curiosity, and now we have his attention. In the art book, Jeremy Price flagged how important the design of the hotel was to conveying just how out of his depth Batman really is. Quote, "The experience was intended to invoke the classic Arkham Asylum dynamic, Batman working his way towards a target as Joker taunts him via TV screens. To ascend the towers is to approach Joker himself. Ground zero for murder and insanity. The closer we get, the more we get to see exactly the sort of acts that only he is capable of. The Bruce of Origins has never prepared himself for this. How could he have? But the combat ring that ties a bow in this fantastic set piece kinda sours the whole thing, because it shows us how we're about to enter a point of no return for Origins combat. We have enforcers, martial artists, knife-wielding baddies, the whole hog, putting bats into a corner and elevating Joker's threat mechanically as well as narratively. But now that Batman has his shiny new toy, there's no point remembering any of the strategies that got him to where he is now. It does trace growth in his skill throughout the adventure, similarly to how he interrogates goons, but it's growth in the wrong direction. It makes every fight after this point mechanically weaker unless you force yourself to ignore the shot gloves, which is pretty tough because the UI doesn't shut the hell up. I think it's the ultimate catch-22, doomed from the start. The shot gloves are awesome, but they cast waves through each beat of the combat elsewhere. It's up to you if that added to the fun or prevented you from finding it. But hey, if the shot gloves make every fight a cakewalk, how do you, as a combat designer, overcome that? Well, you make number go up, of course. The number of enemies, number of combat arenas, speed of attacks, and the amount of health each enemy has, it's all increased. Origins foes are spongier. Your average goon will take 8 hits during free flow with the shot gloves equipped. For comparison, Arkham City was an average of 6 without our electric fists. WB Montreal have overcompensated for their own obstructions to the combat system. See a problem? Make number go up. And hey. This won't be the last time they do that. Number go up would go on to become a problem in a game that they would release 9 years later. Who's that Pokemon? It's Gotham Knights. Yes, I'm talking about Gotham Knights again. There will be a critique on it before the end of the year, so I never have to mention it again, but until then, this is my channel and I can moan about whatever shit game I want to. Speeding up enemies and giving them bigger health bars are probably the reason why Reddit is full of Arkham Origins combat feels off, but I don't know why threads. They haven't changed that much, but these changes are noticeable when you're playing the games back to back, as if WB Montreal looked at Rocksteady's combat design and honestly thought these were flaws that needed fixing. It's the little changes that matter most, but to be honest, I could take it or leave it. Spongy enemies are annoying as hell, but free flow feels as good as ever, so honestly, who cares? What I do care about is how they've changed interrogation. One little change suddenly ruins the best thing about the interrogation system. Before, we would need to be careful and deliberate during free flow, or else we'd accidentally knock an informant out too early and then he wouldn't be able to tell us anything. But now, you can't do that. It's impossible. The game keeps them conscious until the end of a fight, whether you knocked them out or not, removing that immersive tactical element during battle, and just like the shot gloves, making fights too easy.
Nice of you to drop in. And just in time.
He's mine, Payaso.
Remember, you gave your word.
You have 1 minute.
When Batman finally arrives, Joker has one last surprise for him. He pushes a little button and blows up an entire building. A construction site. Nobody was in there. He thinks he's showing off. He's gone from seeing us as an obstacle to being curious, to being interested, and obsession is right around the corner. Destroying a full building is the Joker's version of peacocking. But Batman barely gets 2 or 3 hits in. Bane is tired of the games. He's tired of waiting. He wants to break our damn back. Cue boss fight. The shot gloves might make combat a little too easy, but Bane breaks that rule. He's a beast. Not my favorite fight in the game, but definitely the hardest. In his first phase, he's treated as an enforcer, just another meathead for us to stun and beat down, Gotham's Old Testament. But when he removes his jacket, we see that he's something else altogether. Venom should be our cue to start running, but Batman holds his ground and we're thrown out of the window into the cold night air, ready for round 2. When he's powered by his venom, Bane is invulnerable to everything but a triple stun attack. The challenge is in finding the right opening because he's so rabid. Once we do, we can pull out one of his venom tubes, and it's here that Origins makes up for the crap Bane boss that Arkham Asylum gave us. There were two sins that Arkham Asylum's Bane committed. The first was that it threw waves of random thugs at us to fill the vacuum left by how underwhelming Bane was on his own. This is a sin that Origins also commits, because nothing in this world is the way I like it. But the second was that it gave us a Bane who couldn't lay a finger on us unless he was powered up by Venom. Bane isn't just the venom coursing through his body, he's gifted in every way of war you can imagine. A survivor who spent 14 years training his mind and body in a cell. So even though we can keep separating him from his super serum, he's still an incredible threat because of his speed and ferocity. But through sheer force of will, an exhausted Bruce is able to survive long enough for the GCPD to intervene. Crucially, he doesn't beat Bane. It's through the help of others that our villain is forced to retreat. But as he does, he sends a parting gift. He blows Joker to hell. Despite his prominence in comic books, movies, games, Lego, TV shows, cartoons, clothes, watches, posters, and didgeridoos, the Joker is just a man. In the psyche of pop culture, he might be some eternal, ethereal being that everyone knows, but in the context of many of his stories, he is just a man, albeit a haze of one. However, that wasn't how he was originally conceived. According to his co-creator Jerry Robinson, he was first supposed to be a force of nature. Quote, I never intended to give a reason for his appearance. There have been many origins for the Joker nowadays, but that doesn't matter, just how he is now. He was always beyond Batman's comprehension. In the realm of comics, diagnosing him is impossible. This is for two reasons. The first is that he's gone through, arguably, 4 different phases since his inception. Travis Langley lays them out in his book. Phase 1. The Ace of Knaves. In the early golden age of comics, during his first 2 years in print, Joker was a very sane gangster who wore his costume like an alter ego. This version was scrapped because DC Comics noted the mounting public concern over comic book violence, so ended his killing spree by literally sending Joker to the electric chair. Phase 2. The Clown Prince of Crime. From 1956 to 1970, Joker restricted himself to committing wacky crimes just to get Batman's attention. Like the time he gave his face to Gotham's fish in the hope he could copyright fish and reap millions. Good stuff. Phase 3. The King of Arkham Asylum. The Bronze Age finally gave us comic book stories where the text told us he was insane. This was a Joker who went on wild, sporadic killing sprees. Occasionally, there was reason behind these killings, like seeking revenge on his henchmen who ratted him out to the cops, but typically, this was the sort of Joker who would take over Arkham and spring a sadistic trap for bats to break him. And finally, Phase 4, the Harlequin of Hate. This is a Joker who got personal. He paralyzes Barbara Gordon, beats Jason Todd with a crowbar, and kills Commissioner Gordon's wife. He wants Batman to see the world as he sees it, giggling in a corner and bleeding. It's worth me noting that Jeff Johns made the many faces of Joker canon in his god-awful story 3 Jokers, a tale that claims they were 3 different people who just became the Joker through being dropped in a vat of Joker juice. But honestly, less said about that the better. The second reason why diagnosing him is impossible is because none of Gotham's experts have ever agreed on what he is. In Batman Black and White, an Arkham therapist argues that, quote, the Joker's actions, however bizarre, reveal a sane man who willfully causes anguish and clearly enjoys it. Just as Batman adopted a fearsome image to wage a war on crime, the Joker would hide behind a mask of madness to carry out a very calculated campaign of revenge on the city that failed him. In Grant Morrison's A Serious House on Serious Earth, the comic that inspired Rocksteady's Arkham Asylum, Dr. Ruth Adams claims that he, quote, has no real personality, he creates himself every day. That's why some days he's a mischievous clown and other days a psychopathic killer. He sees himself as the Lord of Misrule and the world as a theatre of the absurd. When talking about Arkham's Joker, that's half true. Joker does see himself as the Lord of Misrule and the world as a theatre of the absurd, but he does have a real personality. He doesn't reinvent himself on the daily. There's just one Joker, damn it, and he'd sooner shoot you than let you say he's replaceable. It's why Arkham City's twist is so striking. It's not just that we, Batman and the player, were tricked, it's that the Joker is so desperate not to be seen as weak by the other gang leaders that he would let Clayface pretend to be him. In the Arkhamverse, there is a thinking, feeling guy under that white skin that we can empathize with if we choose to. But if that's the case, if Joker isn't just a force of nature like Jerry Robinson originally conceived, if he is just a man, what sort of man is he? WB Montreal were clearly champing at the bit to do their own Joker story, so what do the writing team do with that opportunity?
Why, Why would you do that? Newsflash! I'm the one who's trying to kill you! Those were two very, very bad men. Ooh, the things they've done. You really don't want to know. They deserved death. Just like me.
Not for the last time, Batman saves Joker. He catches him before he falls. It's almost romantic if Joker would stop all the damn punching. The clown is confused. In fact, this whole scene isn't just a roller coaster of emotions, it's a damn funhouse. He yells at Batman, considers shooting him, then shoots his own men instead, repaying the favor in his own twisted way. He then tries to justify it, and then he puts the gun to his own head, and then he gives himself up to the GCPD without a fight. Origins gives us glimmers of self-loathing that feel really fresh. He refers to himself as beyond saving, a lost cause at a couple of points in the story, and here we've got a Joker who considers just shooting himself. Later, when he speaks to Harley, he responds to the word acceptance with "my favorite stage," indicating that he recently went through some stages of grief. Maybe one of the potential origins where his wife and child are murdered is true. We won't know for sure, but we can only work with what we have. And what we have is a Joker who's looking for something worth living for. Without it, he'd just spiral into a deep, deadly depression. I'm not a psychiatrist, duh, but following that logic, it means that we could say that the clown persona is a defense mechanism, just like the Batman persona is for Bruce. Joker bathes in madness that his unconscious mind encourages, but he could also be free of it at any moment if he fought against it. Arkham Origins Joker pulls from Alan Moore's rendition. He had one bad day, except in the Arkhamverse that one bad day didn't make him snap, it made him shut down. And something else took over. What happens next in the story is likely why players remember Origins so fondly. As he's shoved into a cop car, a member of the GCPD asks Joker where his partner is. "My partner?" Joker asks, confused. "Yeah, who else would jump off a building to save your sorry ass? I was wondering the same thing myself," Joker mutters. A slick title card tells us we are cutting over to Blackgate Prison. Arkham Asylum hasn't been reopened yet, so the criminally insane are simply shipped over to Blackgate's Arkham ward. This isn't just a Gotham that embraces the death penalty, it's a Gotham that is ill-equipped for this new reign of costumed criminals. Which means the only psychiatrist available tonight is one Harleen Quinzel.
Cops in this city, always beating on the sick and defenseless.
Tell me something, dear. Have you ever had a really bad day?
We play as the Joker. We see the world through his eyes. A loud rainbow of flashing textures and ghosts of the past play out as he grapples with his feelings about Batman. What we witness is the Joker's limitless sense of self unraveling. We see Batman through his eyes, not a hero, not a vigilante, but a monster. Joker replays potential moments of his past, the failed comedian, the Red Hood, running from Batman and falling into acid, but his mind seems to be purging his origin, whipping him from one story beat to the next, constantly interrupted by a shiftless shadow in the shape of a bat, throwing him from scenario to scenario, as if his experience with Batman is completely rewriting his goals, his objectives, and how he sees himself. In the hotel, he tells Batman that he's only been in Gotham for a few days, but if he was in the Red Hood gang like this sequence suggests, it means that whoever he was before the green hair and white skin no longer matters to him. As far as the Joker is concerned, he didn't exist prior to the transformation. The sad thing is that it's happening again, spurred on by Batman saving him. Bats is the catalyst in the Joker's new origin story. He's an all-new, all-star Joker. He's finally found something to live for. The Batman. He trips into obsession with bats, believing fate or destiny have brought the two together. Everything happens for a reason, and Joker's reason to keep going, to embrace his madness even more, is to further his relationship with Batman. Through saving his life, Batman has gifted Joker with a brand new mental illness, dependent personality disorder. In Travis Lanley's book, he uses this disorder to diagnose Harley Quinn. Quote, An individual with dependent personality disorder defines his or her own self-concept in terms of some other person. The basic human need for affiliation has twisted and swollen into something that rules this individual. But doesn't that sound just like Arkham Joker? Hell, it even sounds like some versions of comic book Joker. I'm mainly thinking of Scott Snyder's version that cuts off his own face just to prove a point to bats. In Asylum, he's ruled by a compulsion to make Batman as mad as he is, orchestrating a complex, multi-staged plan. In City, he poisons Batman so their fates are linked, and dreams about dying alongside his old foe. And before the credits roll in Arkham Origins, he will put his life in Batman's hands, a test to see if Batman feels the same way that he does.
My name's Harleen. Harleen Quinzel.
What a pretty name. Do your friends call you Harley?
In Blackgate Prison, Joker basically confesses his love for Batman, and Harley sadly thinks he's talking about her.
Master Bruce. Bruce, I will not in good conscience allow you to go. You're outmatched by these assassins.
What?
You're not some hardened vigilante. You're a young man with a trust fund and too much anger. You're in over your head, and I don't want this to be your end.
Joker might have grown and evolved substantially over the past hour, but Bruce hasn't. Even though the clown is behind bars, Bane is still out there, and he blames Alfred. He thinks that if he hadn't called the GCPD, if they hadn't interrupted their fight, Bane would be in custody and this would all be over. Careful, Bruce, your ego's showing. Alfred finally cast aside his wry wit and passive aggression in favor of a more direct tactic. He calls out this whole crusade. He still doesn't believe that Batman is necessary. Gotham will be fine on its own. Let the cops handle maniacs like Joker or Bane. But Bats refuses to listen, refuses to lean in on his friend, and marches out into the night, fueled not just by vengeance and arrogance anymore, but with a grudge against Bane too. He's literally out for revenge. We see that grudge in Batman's explosive reaction to finding Bane's headquarters. Buried in Gotham's sewers, he's met with a terrifying surprise. Bane knows his secret identity. Just like when he discovered it in the Nightfall comics, he figured it out through simple surveillance. He's studied Batman for a year now, curious about this new warrior, and through that study, he can see that the mask of Bruce Wayne is just that, a mask. Batman blows the headquarters to hell, a short-term solution. Bane has established himself as an ultimate threat for Bruce, and worst of all, he's probably on his way to Wayne Manor. Alfred is in danger. But as we prepare to retreat to the Batcave and fortify against Bane's oncoming attack, Garfield Lynns, aka Firefly, seizes his opportunity to attack. He still seems to think the whole assassinate Batman for money thing is happening despite the fact the Joker is in jail. He takes some hostages on the Pioneer Bridge and threatens to blow the whole thing to hell. This entire sequence focuses on Predator mode with 2 stealth arenas back to back. Our younger, angrier Batman might regularly psychoanalyze his enemies with his fists, but that doesn't mean stealth and Predator mode have been forgotten. They're still here and as fun as ever, so as Batman tries to disarm Firefly's bombs, let's see what's changed. Oh, nothing's changed. This is going to be a short part. Well, almost nothing. Batman's a new dog with old tricks when it comes to stealth, but there are a couple of tweaks. Because the line launcher is gone, our new best friend is the remote claw, and despite it being contextual, there's something to be said for how it gives the arena further versatility because you can connect gargoyles. The essentials remain the same, but having the ability to set up a tightrope without automatically zipping down it provides a new layer of freedom. To make up for how little has changed, WB Montreal has once again resorted to number go up. Almost every stealth arena in Origins is bigger, with more enemies on patrol, with greater variety much earlier. Disruptors, snipers crop up as soon as we get the disruptor in the GCPD, so these additional challenges are more prominent when looking at the game as a whole package. This is great for the first half, but unfortunately that means we lose all sense of stealthy progression the longer the story goes on, because stealth arenas like this one don't go anywhere. There's no difficulty curve, like the sudden appearance of mines in City's steel mill or the destruction of gargoyles in Asylum's intensive treatment center. That doesn't necessarily mean that stealth gets stale. There's enough variety in the level design and scenarios that there are often different variables to consider. An enemy taking a hostage heightens the stakes. The GCPD gives us a square in the center of the arena so we can use the remote claw to create a circle of doom for any cops unlucky enough to walk through it. I was never bored during Predator mode, but I was aware that I'd seen seen almost all of this before. If you spend enough time on forums, you'll see takes that the AI of the henchman is somehow dumber, and I can't really speak to that, but what I can speak to is how good it feels to stalk our enemies while cloaked in darkness. The Batman of Origins is barely a rumour when the game opens. He's been operating in the shadows for 2 years, not letting his enemies get a good look at him, so the real satisfaction is when we make our presence known. The context and the always excellent dialogue from our prey doubles down on feeling like the worst nightmare of Gotham's underworld. It's during this mission that we get a contrast to that feeling. Bats save some hostages in a stealth arena and they immediately call Batman a hero, and that makes Bruce uncomfortable. It's not how he sees himself.
Call them back. If Firefly blows the bridge, there's no telling how many will die.
You're the reason those people are in danger. He's doing this for the bounty on your head. Give yourself up!
Playing Origins made me appreciate how warm Bats is to Jim in the other Arkham games. There's so much animosity here, mainly because of the icy tone in Roger Craig Smith's voice. His experience from playing Snorpy Fizzlebean has started to pay off. The trust we'll later see is yet to be built, and in fact, Gordon blames Bats for all of his death and destruction. He refuses to cooperate with us, opening a shutter that would make our job a lot easier. He doesn't see the good Batman is trying to do. That starts to change on the Pioneer Bridge, but first, it's time for the worst boss in the game. Firefly is a spectacle fight. It looks cool because of all the transitions, the perspective shifts, the flying around the bridge, the explosions, but mechanically it is dull and patronising. There's a lack of confidence in the game's signposting that bogs the whole thing down. Take this moment for example. Bats gets thrown from Firefly to some rubble under the bridge and needs to find a new way back up to him. The game takes 5 full seconds to stop the high octane action stuff and do a slow zoom in on a part of the environment so we know where to go. Tutorials continuously pop up telling us which gadget to use at what time, rather than let us figure it out for ourselves. Where Deathstroke had some variation between gadget use and countering, Copperhead tested our spatial awareness, and Bane tested our raw strength and reflexes, I'm not sure what Firefly tests. You run back and forth a little bit, do some scripted chase sequences, and then use whatever gadget the game yells at us about. Is it as bad as, say, the Joker fight from the end of Arkham Asylum? Hell no, but it is a letdown. As we defeat him, Firefly tries to detonate the final bomb, the one Gordon wouldn't let us get to, but gasp, nothing happens. It turns out the GCPD managed to deactivate that one in time. I know, I'm as shocked as you are, competent cops, but regardless, Gordon begins to see the error of his ways. He admits that while he still doesn't fully trust us, he should have let us through to help. This is the moment their partnership truly begins. Firefly slowed us down too much. When we finally get back to the Batcave, it's in ruins. Bane has been here, and he broke Alfred.
Alfred, you can't.
Don't add me to the weight you carry.
The care given to Origins characters by the game's lead writers, Duma Wenshu and Corey May, shines through here. Alfred dies. Crushed under the rubble, he says his last words to Bruce, "Don't add me to the weight you carry." But Bruce mixes his brains and his brawn to bring his friend back. He and we use the shock gloves like a defibrillator. Gasping and wheezing, Alfred tells us that he finally understands. Bane scared him. He gets it now. There are monsters out there. Batman is Gotham's last line of defense. Bruce isn't convinced. The pictures of the dead flash before his eyes before he finally looks to his parents, the source of his guilt and the fuel for his vengeance. But Alfred's infinite wisdom echoes through to him. You're a man, not an island. And a man's strength comes not just from his brawn and intelligence, but his allies. They need you.
No. They need us.
It's a valuable lesson. But there's one more thing Bruce needs to learn before the credits roll. The game ends where it begins, Blackgate Prison. Joker, presumably through the help of Harleen Quinzel and Bane, has broken out of his cell and crowned himself king of the prison. He set a trap for the Bat and is waiting for us to spring it gloriously. Closing off in Blackgate is a smart choice because it means WB Montreal can trace how much Bruce and Gotham have evolved in just one night. We're stronger, we hit harder, we have new toys to play with, but it's the setting and the scene dressing that matters most. At the start of the game, the bars were cold, the walls were thick, the prisoners we battled were basic henchmen, but now now the Joker has infected the prison with his flamboyance and extravagance. He's transformed it into an asylum. Mattresses line the walls to make it seem like padded cells. Toilet paper hangs from the ceiling to add washes of white to the ruddy greys. And of course, there's all the green paint. Joker's mania echoes through the speaker system, flitting between telling his men to bring us in alive and then telling them to kill us or face consequences. Pick one, Mr. J.
I understand you. You had a chance to let me die, and you didn't take it. I bet right now you're wishing you had. I've killed a lot of people.
So here it is, the crucial moment the game has been building to. Joker's prepared a little puzzle for us, the ultimate test of our rigor and rules. Bane wants to fight us and has a heart monitor strapped to his chest. It's charging the electric chair that Joker's locked himself into, so either we kill Bane or Joker dies. As a boss fight, this acts as a repeat of our first contest, except, true to form, Montreal have made the numbers go up. Bane's health, his damage output, how long he charges for, how many arbitrary goons are in the arena with us, the variety of enemies that are ambushing us, it's all more. I love how Bane is maskless in this scene. He doesn't need it. He and Batman know who each other are. He broke into his home and killed our only friend just to make Bruce angrier, to make him more hateful, to make him fight with all of his resolve, to make him want revenge. Nobody would blame him if he killed Bane right here, right now. Why shouldn't he? Alfred might still be breathing, but for a few minutes, Bane killed him, and the game Joker's set up for us is impossible. Well, in the words of Tom King, not impossible, Batman. With the shot gloves, Batman breaks his one rule. He stops Bane's heart. The Juggernaut falls to the ground, dead. The electric chair loses its charge. Joker escapes deeper into the prison. Batman took his revenge. Or did he?
Gordon, Joseph, I need your help to stop the Joker. Our help? You're the so-called vigilante. Or is one kill enough for you tonight? Bane's in cardiopulmonary arrest. I have only minutes to resuscitate him before it's too late. You mean you didn't? That's not how I do things. Now go.
Bats takes Alfred's advice and leans on Jim Gordon, asking him for help to get the prison under control. He's running out of time because he didn't break his rule. With the shot gloves, he's going to save Bane's life, no matter how much he hates him. Arkham Origins gives us a Batman who is beaten and broken over a long, long night. The same way he'll be beaten and broken in Asylum and beaten and broken in City, and yes, when I eventually critique it, we'll see him beaten and broken in Night. But my favourite thing about this game is the clear arc that it lays out for our hero. This, saving Bane, is the moment Batman stops being fueled by vengeance and chooses to embody it instead. He beats Bane into submission, but he doesn't lose control, not like he has before. Even though there is every reason to just let Bane die, Batman saves his life in a brutal, rigorous, disciplined way that is so goddamn Batman it's enough to make me wear a cape and go up to the roof. And, classic Bat, his foe repays him by choking him out and injecting himself with a concentrated dose of venom, completing his own evolution into the monster we commonly know. And what happens next is just so good, man. We've fought Bane with our fists twice now, and both times his commandment of the battlefield has come through in his ferocity. But what would happen if he stalked us? In its final minutes, Arkham Origins turns Bane from an intelligent, ruthless, powerful tactician to a monster out of a horror movie. Bats is outgunned and outmatched. A lot of our gadgets are too weak to do any real damage, so in claustrophobic corridors with the jowls of inmates ringing in our ears, we need to cautiously creep away from Bane while he hunts for us. We've got 10 minutes to take him down, and with each minute that passes, Bane gets stronger and stronger, building to an eventual one-hit kill. The score builds with metallic clangs, and when it mixes with Bane stomping and roaring, it all reinforces the horror of Batman's more dangerous villains. The Vents and Detective Vision are our only allies in this fight, or at least for the first half, because eventually Bane's intelligence will shine through, activating a disruptor so we can no longer track him through walls. This disempowers Bruce and no longer makes him feel like a demon in the shadows or a brawler with electric fists, but a scared, lonely man dressed like a bat, locked in a box with a monster. Stunning him and knocking him unconscious, we learn that the prototype venom Bane injected himself with has a whole range of side effects, mainly amnesia. Bane doesn't remember learning our identity. Well, that's lucky, isn't it? All he remembers is that the Batman hurt him, and he'll carry that vendetta into the future. But there's one last loose end to tie up. The Joker is waiting for us.
Oh, bats. It's so... What a night! fresh off the kill, and back for more, eh?
Joker's desire to link himself to Batman comes through a few times as they confront each other in the chapel. He thinks he's brought us down to his level. He thinks we've killed Bane, and learning the truth, he panics. He accuses us of liking the pain as we beat him down, not in a boss fight of any sort, but in a gratuitous, satisfying blast of fists. The Joker thinks that's where Batman ends, the vengeance. He doesn't see the man who saves his enemies, or mourns his loved ones, or is vulnerable with his friends. Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins changed the origin story of Bruce's training to establish Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins, Shadows, as the film's big bad. But in the comics, he didn't train under Ra's. He trained in North Korea under Master Kirigi. Kirigi is impressed with his discipline and force of will, and once Bruce proves himself, he offers to teach him the path to enlightenment. It would take 20 years. Bruce doesn't have 20 years, so leaves without that enlightenment, carrying his rage and his vengeance back to Gotham to wage his war on criminals. Arkham Origins makes this canon. The Initiation DLC lets us experience Bruce's training through some tough-as-nails challenge maps, and if we beat them to a gold standard, we get the canonical ending. Kirigi tells Bruce that they have much to discuss, implying that he will offer the path to enlightenment and Bruce will turn him down, just like in the comics. It's poetic that it's here that Arkham's Batman finally begins that path. He didn't achieve enlightenment in North Korea, but maybe in an insane reconstruction of Gotham's prison with mattresses conveying padded cells, fire, explosions, cruelty, and madness, he will start to find it. It begins with saving Bane, and it is solidified with his final refusal to kill the Joker after everything he's put him through tonight. And it's doubly poetic that we end in an old Gothic cathedral, considering Origins marks the transition from Gotham's Old Testament to its new. Jim Gordon lets him go. He's starting to see the light, or should that be the dark? Batman might not think of himself as a hero, but how we see ourselves isn't what matters. It's how other people see us. Barbara, Jim, Alfred, the numerous Gothamites that we saved tonight, they're starting to believe, not in vengeance, but in the Batman. But Origins doesn't stop there. In fact, there's one more person Vengeance needs to meet before he transforms into the Batman, someone that might warm his cold, cold heart. So, let's talk about the DLC.
Mr. Boyle seems to be after your title as Gotham's biggest philanthropic industrialist.
Gotham needs more people like him.
Bruce!
Hey.
I am blown away by your support.
Batman might have overcome his blind rage, arrogance, and thirst for revenge, but when Arkham Origins came to a close, he was yet to learn the most important quality in a superhero: empathy. The DLC, Cold Cold Heart, sets out to fix that. Even though it released 6 months after the original game came out, only a week has passed in-universe. It's New Year's Eve. Bruce Wayne is hosting a gala at Wayne Manor, presenting the Wayne Tech Humanitarian Award to a Mr. Ferris Boyle, CEO of GothCorp. Bruce believes in Ferris. He sees him as a good man who can use his power, his company, and his influence to change Gotham for the better. While Bruce operates in the dark, he wants to encourage Ferris to keep operating in the light. If you've seen the Emmy Award-winning episode Heart of Ice, which, let's face it, if you're this far into a Batman video, you've seen Heart of Ice, then you'll note that this relationship has been twisted a little bit for the game. In the TV show, Ferris isn't a nice guy from the get-go. He's a snide, patronizing elitist who refers to his employees as wage slaves, much to Bruce's disgust. Because the animated series had just 20 minutes to tell Mr. Freeze's origin, Boyle's unlikability, and give us a tale where Batman sympathizes with a baddie, there wasn't any time for a late-stage twist. He's a dick from the offset, but in the game, we've got a cocky, young, naive Batman who thinks he's a better judge of character than he really is. Incredibly, without Cold Cold Heart, we would never get to experience Wayne Manor in a mainline Arkham game, except for Arkham VR, but that was all a dream or whatever, so it doesn't count. WB Montreal have seized the opportunity to show off the Wayne family's splendor, as well as show us what a siege on the manor would look like. When Victor Freeze storms in, chilling the hearts of Gotham's rich and famous, we get to live through that classic comic book trope of hero needs to suit up without anyone noticing. Our gameplay opening is a fight through Wayne Manor, something I didn't know I needed in this universe until the DLC.
We need to get you out of here.
I heard about you. I have no quarrel with you.
Then you crashed the wrong party.
Even if Freeze's story is as well read as Batman's own, this is a brilliant introduction to him. His single-mindedness is clear in every shot. His grief for his wife Nora has transformed him into a man lost in his own vengeance, a neat parallel to Batman's. He's blasted his way through denial and anger into bargaining, determined to fix what's wrong and save Nora's life. Any threat to that bargain fires up his anger. He tells Batman there's no quarrel with him, and that's true, just so long as we stay out of his way. But Freeze isn't alone, and as he kidnaps Ferris and marches him off to the GothCorp building, Bats is swarmed by some of the Penguin's thugs. Here, mysteriously, helping the Iceman. The DLC brings us a couple of cool changes to the fighting and creeping. The big one, my favourite one, is the Freeze Goon, a brand new enemy type armed with a cheaper version of Victor Freeze's Ray. They're dangerous as hell, forcing us to be both more defensive, dodging their icy blasts, and more aggressive, because we lure their freeze attack into icing up their pals. But that's not the only way Origins doubles down on the cool factor. Cool. Get it? Do you get it? Cryo barrels are strewn around stealth arenas and give us a flashy new strategy and takedown. Mechanically, these operate identically to the glue grenade, but as with all of Batman's gadgets in Predator mode, variety is the spice of life, rather than providing opportunities that weren't there before. And speaking of gadgets, we also get the thermos charged batarangs that let us drop icicles on goons' heads, and the thermal charged gloves that replace our shot gloves and give heat-based takedowns. And look, I would be the first to admit that none of this is that substantial. The thermal gloves, especially, are just a color change to let us melt and break contextual ice blocks. But for a DLC, this all feels pretty substantial because there's so much of it, and because it adds to the Batman fantasy. Why exactly a 2-year-old Bruce would have cool gear like the XC suit is still a fair question, but I think it matters less because Freeze's story isn't one that emphasizes a rough and raw Batman. Being out of his depth isn't all that important in this tale. In fact, dismantling a Batman who thinks he knows everything and has the gameplay variety to reinforce that makes his eventual realization that Victor Freeze is a complicated criminal all the more powerful. The most substantial addition to the DLC is GothCorp.
What's Freeze after? Why does he need Boyle?
Boyle's got codes he needs to access some kind of super weapon, and now you let him have it.
It's a brand new, expansive dungeon with craft, care, and flavor text etched into every inch with an ice pick. Somewhere inside, Freeze has dragged a screaming and crying Ferris Boyle. To stop us from following, he's blasted a huge, thick ice wall with Oswald Cobblepot trapped inside. Freeze is, or was, working with Penguin. Penguin's got the muscle, and Freeze has the money to buy henchmen that'll help with his kidnapping attempt and give us someone to punch. Bats is furious. He's been told by Alfred and Penguin that GothCorp has apparently been making weapons all this time, but he refuses to believe Ferris is corrupt until he sees it for himself. Unfortunately for him, evidence of Boyle's dealings is everywhere if you know where to look. It's elaborately structured with locked doors, frozen vents, various labs, walkways, and cryogenic traps to overcome. You won't go longer than 10 seconds without a new obstacle in your way. There are plenty of combat arenas, but they feel less like a stocking stuffer and more like breaks from the intrepid exploration. The level design feels like it was prioritized, like whoever was in charge paid special attention to it, and come to think of it, who was the creative director? Benoit Richter, the game director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I mean, wait. Oh god, Benoit Richter, the game director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. What happened to you, bro? The Valhalla-isms do poke through when we look at the overall structure of the DLC. There is a lot of unnecessary bloat here. A fetch quest where Bats needs to get parts of a cryo drill mean we fly about the city beating up bald men in the street. 2 side quests are bolted in here that are less imaginative than the main games. One is a repeat of Anarchy's side quest, his followers have planted some bombs so we need to deactivate them, and the other is finding cops dotted around the city who've been frozen in blocks of ice. You. That's the Batman fantasy, baby. The meat of the story comes in its final quarter, after the fetch quests and the cool new suit, and breaking through our nice cold penguin sickle, Bruce finds Freeze's lab, and our young raw Batman is forced to grow up.
I'm sorry, Master Bruce. I know you had high hopes for what Ferris could do for Gotham.
That doesn't matter now. Victor's plan was never to kill Boyle. He needs Boyle's security access to get his wife out of GothCorp. That's all he wants.
And now, you're going to stop him?
I have to.
And are you still going to need that gurney?
I am. But not for Victor.
Criminals aren't complicated. They're just a superstitious and cowardly lot. right? Victor Fries was looking into a cure for Huntington's disease. His wife, Nora, was dying, and he cryogenically froze her to give him more time. Ferris said he'd fund his research if he came to work on cryoweapons at GothCorp. Victor reluctantly agreed, but Ferris eventually reneged on the deal. He and Victor got into a fight, and a lab accident turned Victor into the Iceman. Just like with the Lacey Towers murder, we learn all of this through detective mode, solving the crime of what made Freeze freeze. The lab is coated in jagged, violent spikes of ice. The air is barely breathable, it's so cold. At first glance, this looks like the Frankensteinian lab of a monster, but what Batman's facing is just a grieving husband who wants to get his wife out of GothCorp so he can keep trying to cure her in peace. Bats knows he still has to stop Freeze. He's killed a lot of people tonight, but there's a part of him that doesn't want to, and most importantly of all, he doesn't want to hurt him. But as far as Freeze is concerned, we're just in his way, so cue boss fight. Like a lot of Arkham Origins, the development team for the Freeze fight basically looked at Arkham City and said, yeah, let's do that but bigger, and I do not begrudge them it. The lack of novelty is felt, and the battle is overrun with regular grunts for unknown but dumb reasons, but it's fun as hell and an absolute standout when looking at the game as a whole slab of ice. There are two phases this time. Phase 1 needs us to swing around in darkness, distract Freeze, and shut down the cryo batteries with our gloves before he notices. Remember way back when I was talking about gadgets, this is the sort of stuff Arkham Origins main game needed more of. It's tense, it's a neat twist, and makes the Freeze fight feel unique. Phase 2 is a pure stealth fight where Freeze will alter the arena with his gun to take options away from us. It's less about not being able to repeat tactics, because we can, but more about staying thrifty with our attacks, because Freeze will keep icing up vents, walls, and gargoyles to obstruct us.
Cryogenic containment restored.
I'm sorry, Victor. I can't give you peace, but I can give you justice.
The flickers of a Batman who will eventually work alongside villains in Arkham City come through here. Boyle goes to jail. We beat him to the ground and save Victor from him. While many years will pass before the story of Arkham Asylum, the stage is set for Batman to keep growing, keep being enlightened, become more empathetic, and see his villains for the people they once were. Or, in this case, still are. Cold, cold heart is downright necessary if you care about the growth of the Dark Knight, because we get to see him admit he's wrong. We get to see him confront someone who is as lost in his vengeance as he was. There is a comic book that some of you might not know, called Batman Year 2, written by this guy, Mike Barr. No points for guessing that it was written as a follow-up to Frank Miller's award-winning tale Batman Year 1, but despite it being created with Miller's work in mind, it's a very different beast. The art by Alan Davies and Todd McFarlane gives us an incredibly colourful Batman, not one cloaked in stylish, blocky darkness, but one with a blue cape and cowl against a backdrop of reds and greens. It follows Batman on the hunt of a serial killer called the Reaper, but through a twist of fate, he needs to team up with Joe Chill, his parents' killer. For the whole story, Bats plans to kill Chill, shoot him with the same gun he used to murder the Waynes, but in the end, he can't do it, and throws the gun into the Gotham Bay. When Mike Barr was asked about the story a few years later, he said that he was terrified when he sat down to put pen to paper. "I'm standing on the shoulders of giants," he said. Sound familiar? Arkham Origins might have flaws. It might not do enough to flesh out the Batman fantasy beyond what WB Montreal were originally given, but it gives us a Batman who is written with hunger, rage, and personal flaws to consider, cast against a red-tinged backdrop of villains that grow and mature alongside him. It may stand on the shoulders of giants, but it does it with a vengeance. Hey, thanks for watching. This is the third in a series of 4 videos covering the mainline Arkham games. Next up is Arkham Knight, so if that sounds of interest, drop a like and hit that subscribe button below. But before you go, 3 quick announcements. Announcement 1 is that we're going to cover the Arkham series in my podcast, Lore Dump. My friend Chase hasn't played any of the games and knows none of the story, so that should be fun. That'll be a wee while away yet, but be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it when it comes. Links below. Announcement 2 is a thank you to Ross McFarlane from FOLXLORE, who did the audio editing for this critique. Let me know how it sounded below. He's a friend of the channel, and if you like spooky audio dramas, I totally recommend FOLXLORE. Please give it a listen. Link is also below. Announcement 3 is another thank you to Zoltiboi for whipping up another badass thumbnail for this video. Give him some love on Twitter. Link is also below. And finally, a massive shout out to my £2 patrons for all of your support. Order of thanks go to Gaming University, Yeah Schnitzel, Eddie Black, Abigail James, Alina Buck, Combat Wombat, Top Hat Tiger, Chase, Joel Jimenez, The Vim, Wayward Flock, Larmed Larma, Matt Palmer, Thomas Pruitt, Spalter, Danations, Christopher McBride, The Slayer of Games, Daniel Boyles, Shishki, Wandering Alpha, Vivi, Mija, Ronnie Law, Ridge Medema, Battenberg, Captain Bon Clay, Alec Maxwell, Come on Command, Michael Gallagher, Captain Cabinet, Logan Hamilton, David Brynjarsen, Name Requires DLC, George Vincent, Eric Frey, Danger Zone, Chris McMullen, Chris McRae, Ryan Bryce, Ryan, Brenton, Matt Emmy, Matthew Halsey, Sean Toland, Jerome Hotchkiss, Prodigal Horse, Mr. Anthropic, Mike Chilabi, Trenchcoat Guy, The Heirs of History, Griffin Spencer Beam, Cody, Kyle P. Feely, Garrett Birchall, Chachas Vaz 76, Jack, Neil Mack, Sam's Forge, Aurelia, Kristen Fenchel, Neon Leah, Saint Allison, Patrick Baird, LGX, Weaving Werewolf, Nicholas Chemin, Trevor Vernon, Mark Anderson, Joel Wilcox, Pleo, Gavastrian, Blank Name, Unholy Biscuit, Uzair, Leon, Matthew Sinclair Thompson, X-Rights, Shamax, Aiden, Jonathan Riggs, Zachary Johnston, Daxter TK421, DNSCH, Jared Trainham, Monacari, Kieran Gresty, Lamar825, Ike N, The All Brand Man, Tempe, Unicourt, David J. Morin, Minito, Callum Armitage, Christopher Tierney, Torstein Sunnis, Fipsy, Derek DeRosia, Luca, Tom Inns, Sammy Stuff, Jaguke, Alberto Calez, Captain Waffles. There seems like there's more of you than ever before. Type Raz, Dini, Zachary Powers, Andrew Munoz, Prospero, Neuen Guterres Nopoff, Alan Black, Callsign Noor, David Bedard, Jared Helfer, Mukor, John Foster Ag, Robert Capel, Matt McCulloch, Paul W, Chief Sweep, Ehor May, Jonathan Lum, Reese, Strupp, Angry Optimist, Yana Grasfrau, Mr. Fredo Renton, Long Cheddar, Talkster, 100 Sams, My Friend Neil, Nathaniel Waters, Dinkin Pearson, Kyle Pears, Lonely Ronin, Kane Highwind, and Neve Care. Thank you all so much, and take care.